I stood at the airport check-in counter watching my father hand my passport back to me while giving my boarding pass to my brother's fiancée, Jessica. The $26,000 I saved for 3 years to fund this family dream trip to Dubai suddenly meant nothing. My father's words stung like acid on an open wound. Jessica deserves this more than you. She's going to be real family soon. My brother Mark smirked beside Jessica, his arm possessively around her waist. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound ever could, as I realized my own father just erased me from the family vacation I entirely paid for. The morning had started so differently. I'd woken up at 4 a.m, too excited to sleep any longer. After 18 months of meticulous planning, our family trip to Dubai was finally here. I ran my fingers over the folder containing all our travel documents, each page representing countless hours of overtime I'd worked as a financial analyst at Preston Securities. Every detail had been perfect. The presidential suite at the Burj Al Arab, those gold-lined walls I'd seen only in magazines, private desert safaris with falconry demonstrations, sunset yacht tours around the Palm Jumeirah, Michelin-starred dining experiences at underwater restaurants. I'd researched every single activity, read hundreds of reviews, compared prices across dozens of websites. This wasn't just a vacation. It was my love letter to the family who'd raised me. I remembered those Sunday dinners where I'd spread brochures across Mom's dining table, my eyes bright with excitement. "Look at this," I'd said, showing them pictures of the Dubai frame. "We can see the entire city from up there, and this shopping festival happens right when we're going." Mark had barely glanced up from his phone. "Cool Ava," he'd muttered while Jessica filed her nails, leaving purple polish dust on Mom's white tablecloth. Neither of them offered to contribute a penny, but I didn't mind. Mark had been between jobs for what seemed like forever, and Jessica was focusing on their relationship. My parents had been more enthusiastic, or so I'd thought. Dad had patted my shoulder, saying how proud he was of his successful daughter. Mom had teared up, talking about how she'd never imagined seeing such places. Their reactions had made every extra shift worth it, every weekend spent working instead of living. But something had been nagging at me for the past 2 weeks. Jessica's Instagram had exploded with posts I couldn't quite understand. Countdown begins 15 days until paradise, with airplane emojis. Shopping for resort wear, can't wait to break these in on the beach, alongside pictures of designer sandals I knew she couldn't afford. When I'd asked Mark about it over coffee last week, he'd shrugged it off. "She's just excited about the wedding planning. You know how girls get about that stuff." Except Jessica wasn't posting about weddings. She was posting about Dubai, specific Dubai locations, the exact restaurants I'd booked, the precise yacht tour I'd arranged. Either she'd hacked into my planning folder or someone had been sharing very detailed information with her. My stomach churned as I'd scrolled through more posts. There was Jessica at a luxury spa getting what she called her pre-Dubai glow treatment. Jessica showing off a new passport holder with Dubai bound, embroidered in gold thread. Jessica counting down days with increasing excitement while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for it all. The confrontation with my father had been inevitable. I'd driven to my parents' house last night, finding Dad alone in his study. The conversation replayed in my mind now as I stood in the airport. "Dad, we need to talk about Jessica's posts," I'd said, showing him my phone. He'd adjusted his reading glasses, looking uncomfortable. "What about them?" "She's acting like she's coming to Dubai, like it's her trip." The silence that followed told me everything. Dad set down his glasses with the careful precision of someone buying time. "Eva, sweetheart, I've been meaning to talk to you about that." My heart had started racing. "About what?" "Well, Jessica's been feeling really left out lately. She and Mark are getting married soon, and she'll be family. Real family. I might have mentioned that she could come along." "Instead of who?" My voice had been deadly quiet. "We figured you'd understand. You're so independent, always working. You probably need a break from family time anyway. Jessica needs this more. She's never been anywhere special, and with the wedding stress." "I paid for this trip," I'd interrupted, my voice shaking. Every single penny, $26,000 of my own money. And that's very generous of you, but family helps family, Eva. You'll understand when you're married. I'd left his house in tears, convincing myself I'd misunderstood. Surely my father wouldn't actually give away my spot on the trip I'd entirely funded. Surely there were boundaries even he wouldn't cross. But now, standing at the check-in counter at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, watching him hand over my boarding pass to Jessica, I realized I'd underestimated just how little I meant to my own family. The folder in my hands, once containing dreams of family bonding, now felt like evidence of my own foolishness. "Sir, we need all passengers present to check in," the airline employee said, looking confused at the musical chairs happening with our documents. "She's here," Dad said, pointing at Jessica. "Eva was just dropping us off. Weren't you, sweetheart?" The lie rolled off his tongue so easily I wondered how many times he'd practiced it. My mother stood nearby, refusing to meet my eyes, her hands clutching her carry-on like a shield. Mark whispered something in Jessica's ear that made her giggle, a sound like nails on a chalkboard to my ears. "Dad," I said, my voice stronger than I felt, "that's my ticket. I booked this entire trip." "Don't make a scene, Ava," he hissed, his friendly father mask slipping to reveal something colder underneath. "We discussed this. You agreed." "I never agreed to anything." But Jessica was already stepping forward, her manicured hand reaching for my boarding pass with the confidence of someone who'd already won. The smirk on her face told me everything I needed to know. This had been planned, orchestrated, decided long before today. I was just the last to know about my own exclusion. The airline employee looked between us all, clearly sensing the tension. "Is there a problem here?" "No problem," my father said smoothly. "Just a little family confusion. Eva's not traveling with us. She has to work." I opened my mouth to protest, to scream that this was theft, that this was betrayal of the highest order. But the words died in my throat as I saw my entire family united against me. 4 against 1. The same dynamics that had played out my entire life, except this time they'd taken $26,000 along with my dignity. "Absolutely not," I said, my voice cutting through the airport noise like a blade. "I need to speak with a supervisor. This is my booking under my name, paid with my credit card." The check-in agent's eyes widened as she sensed the brewing storm. Jessica's perfectly glossed lips twisted into an ugly frown, and she pressed herself closer to Mark as if I might physically snatch the boarding pass back, which honestly wasn't a bad idea. "Eva, stop embarrassing yourself." Mom finally spoke, her voice dripping with disappointment. "Think about how this looks. All these people watching." "How this looks?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're stealing from me in broad daylight and you're worried about appearances." Dad's face flushed red, that particular shade that appeared when his authority was challenged. "Nobody's stealing anything. We're reorganizing family resources for the greater good. You make good money, Ava. You can take another trip anytime." "Family resources." My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. "Since when is my personal savings account a family resource?" "Since you live like you're too good for us," Mark finally chimed in, setting down his backpack with unnecessary force. "Always bragging about your job, your bonuses, your fancy downtown apartment. Well, guess what? Some of us have real responsibilities." "What responsibilities? You don't even have a job." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Mark's face contorted with rage, and Jessica made a wounded sound like I'd personally attacked her. That's when Mark's backpack knocked over and his dramatic gesture spilled its contents across the floor. Papers scattered everywhere. Boarding passes, sure, but also something else. Bank statements, recent ones. I bent down, grabbing one before Mark could stop me, and my eyes widened at what I saw. "Remote Solutions, Inc." I read aloud. "Direct deposit, $3,400. Mark, this is from 2 weeks ago." Mark lunged for the paper, but I stepped back, reading more. 8 months of deposits. You've been working this entire time." "That's private property," Mark shouted, drawing stares from other travelers. 8 months. I continued my mind calculating rapidly. At this salary, you've earned over $27,000 while claiming to be unemployed, while letting me pay for everything, while Mom and Dad covered your rent because you were struggling. Jessica's face had gone pale beneath her spray tan. Baby, what is she talking about? It's not what it looks like, Mark stammered, gathering the scattered papers frantically. That job, it's complicated. I'm saving for our future. Our future. I turned to face my parents. Did you know about this? Mom's guilty expression gave her away immediately. She clutched Dad's arm, her eyes darting between Mark and me like a trapped animal. Dad, however, straightened his shoulders with the self-righteousness of someone who'd convinced himself he was right. Of course we knew, he said. Mark's been working hard to save for his wedding. And do you have any idea how expensive weddings are these days? So let me get this straight, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Mark's been lying about being unemployed, collecting sympathy and money from all of us while secretly working and saving. And you knew. You all knew. It wasn't lying, Mom protested weakly. It was financial planning. Financial planning that involved me funding this entire trip while my brother saved his money for himself. The airline employee had called for security at some point during our argument. 2 uniformed officers approached, their faces professionally neutral. Is there a problem here? Yes, I said at the same time Dad said no. This woman is harassing my family, Dad told the officers, pointing at me like I was a stranger. She's trying to disrupt our travel plans. This woman, I said, my voice shaking with fury, paid for their entire vacation and is being removed from it against her will. The officers looked confused, which made sense. This wasn't exactly a typical airport disturbance. One of them, a younger man with kind eyes, addressed me directly. Ma'am, whose name is on the booking? Mine, Eva Thompson. I have all the confirmation emails, credit card statements, everything. Then you have the right to cancel or modify the booking, he said simply. Dad's face went from red to purple. She wouldn't dare. Watch me, I said, pulling out my phone. Ava, please. Jessica suddenly spoke up, tears appearing magically in her eyes. I've never been anywhere nice. This was supposed to be special. Mark was going to propose properly in Dubai. With the ring I'm sure he bought with all that money he saved while pretending to be broke. Jessica's tears dried up, instantly replaced by a vicious glare. You bitter witch! Just because nobody wants to marry you doesn't mean you get to ruin it for everyone else. Nobody wants to marry me. I laughed, actually laughed. That's your argument. I'm 32, financially independent, and apparently the only honest person in this family. I'd say I'm doing just fine. You're doing fine alone, Mark spat, and you always will be. No wonder Brandon left you. You care more about money than people. The mention of my ex-boyfriend was a low blow, but it also revealed something. They'd been discussing me, analyzing my failures, using my broken relationship as evidence of my flaws. The family I'd worked so hard to treat to something special had been dissecting my personal life behind my back. Sir, the second officer addressed my father. We're going to need you all to step aside and resolve this matter. You're holding up the line. As we moved to the side, I noticed something else among Mark's scattered papers, an email printout. I snatched it before he could react, and my blood ran cold as I read. This is from your company's HR department, I said. A warning about falsifying remote work locations. Mark, have you been working while traveling without telling them? Mark's guilty silence was answer enough. He'd been logging in from various locations, claiming to be working from home while gallivanting around on weekend trips with Jessica. The very trips he'd told us he couldn't afford. That's none of your business, he muttered. It became my business when you made me fund your lifestyle while you committed employment fraud. Employment fraud, Jessica squeaked. Baby, what's she talking about? Nothing. Eva's just being dramatic, as usual. But I could see the fear in his eyes now. Remote work had rules, especially in finance-adjacent companies. Lying about your location while handling sensitive data wasn't just a fireable offense. It could involve legal consequences. You know what? I said, suddenly exhausted. Keep the tickets, all of you. Go to Dubai. Dad's face lit up with triumph. I knew you'd see reason. Oh, I see things very clearly now, I continued. But there's one small problem. The Burj Al Arab requires the original booking credit card to be presented at check-in. Hotel policy. No exceptions. I held up my credit card, the one I'd used for the booking, then slipped it back into my wallet. Good luck checking in without it. Jessica's face went white. You wouldn't. I wouldn't, I asked. Like you wouldn't steal my vacation. Like my brother wouldn't lie about having a job. Like my parents wouldn't enable this theft. Eva, be reasonable, Mom pleaded. We're family. Noah, I said, backing away from them. Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't lie, steal, and manipulate. You want the trip? Figure it out yourselves. I'm done. As I walked away, I heard my father shout, You'll regret this, Eva. You're destroying this family. No, I thought as I headed for the exit. You destroyed it the moment you chose her over me. The security officers prevented them from following me, and for once I was grateful for airport protocol. I made it to my car before the tears came. $26,000, 18 months of planning, a lifetime of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who could be counted on to sacrifice for everyone else. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't read. I knew what they'd say. Variations of guilt, manipulation, and blame. The same song and dance I'd been performing my entire life. But as I sat in that parking garage, something shifted. The tears stopped. The hurt transformed into something harder, colder. They'd made their choice. Now it was time to make mine. I hadn't even left the parking garage when my phone erupted with calls and messages. 47 texts in 10 minutes, 12 missed calls, 3 voicemails I deleted without listening. My family had always been persistent when they wanted something, but this was a new level of desperation. Finally, Mom's ringtone broke through again. Against my better judgment, I answered. Eva, you need to come back right now, she said without preamble. The airline says they can't process the check-in without you present since you're the primary booking contact. That's not my problem anymore. How can you say that? We're standing here like fools? Everyone's watching. Good, I thought. Let them watch. Let everyone see what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Put Dad on, I said. There was shuffling. Then Dad's voice boomed through the speaker. Eva Marie Thompson, you get back here this instant. I don't care if you're 32 years old, I'm still your father, and you will not disrespect me like this. Disrespect. I laughed bitterly. You stole $26,000 from me and gave my vacation to Jessica. Where's the respect in that? I didn't steal anything. I made an executive family decision. Something you'd understand if you had any sense of family loyalty. Family loyalty. Is that what you call Mark lying about being unemployed while I paid for everything? Your brother's financial situation is between him and us. You don't understand the pressure he's under, planning a wedding, starting a life with Jessica. With whose money, Dad? Because it certainly wasn't his, even though he had it. There was a pause. Then Dad's voice turned colder than I'd ever heard it. You want to play hardball? Fine. If you don't come back here and fix this situation, you're no longer welcome in our home. No more Sunday dinners, no more holidays, no more family. The ultimatum hit like a punch to the gut. Not because I'd missed the dinners where they criticized my life choices or the holidays where I played ATM for everyone's gifts, but because it meant they'd chosen. Between their daughter, who'd done everything for them, and a woman my brother had been dating for barely 2 years, they'd chosen her. Is that your final decision? I asked quietly. Don't test me, Eva. You know I don't make idle threats. Neither do I said. So let me make something crystal clear. I'm not just canceling the Dubai trip. I'm canceling everything. The hotel, the excursions, the restaurant reservations, everything that's in my name, which is everything, will be canceled within the hour. You can't do that. We'll sue you. For what? Canceling my own bookings. Good luck with that. I heard Jessica's shrill voice in the background. She can't do this to me. I already posted about this trip. People are expecting updates. Of course, that was her main concern. Not the family relationship being destroyed, but her social media image. And another thing. I continued, my voice steady, despite my shaking hands. That emergency credit card Mom has, the one she used this morning to upgrade you and Jessica to first class while keeping economy seats for herself and Dad, that's being canceled too. Silence. Then Mom's panicked voice. How did you know about that? Credit card alerts, Mom. Technology you claimed you didn't understand when you asked me to set up that card for real emergencies only. Since when is first class an emergency? We wanted Mark and Jessica to be comfortable for the proposal, Mom said weakly. But not comfortable enough to pay for it yourselves. I pulled up my credit card app while they continued shouting through the phone. 3 clicks. Card canceled. Another few clicks into the hotel app. Cancellation requested. The travel insurance I'd purchased would ensure I got most of my money back, citing family emergency as the reason. How ironically appropriate. It's done, I announced. Everything's canceled. Your move. The silence was deafening. Then I heard Mark grab the phone. You psycho, do you have any idea what you've just done? Jessica's been dreaming about this trip. Then Jessica should have paid for it, or you should have with all that money you've been hiding. That money is for our wedding. And my money was for my vacation. Funny how that works. I'll ruin you, Mark hissed. I'll tell everyone what kind of person you really are. Selfish, vindictive, jealous of Jessica because she's everything you're not. Everything I'm not. You mean unemployed, entitled, and dating someone who's apparently still married to someone else. There was a pause. What are you talking about? I'd been bluffing fishing based on Jessica's overreaction, but Mark's response told me I'd hit something. Nothing. Just wondering why Jessica's so secretive about her past. But hey, I'm sure you know everything about the woman you're planning to marry, right? You're lying. Am I? When's the last time you met any of her family or friends from before you met, or saw any photos from her past? The doubt in Mark's voice was palpable. She's just private. Sure, private. Well, enjoy your private wedding planning with your private fiancé. Just keep me out of it. I heard commotion in the background, raised voices, what sounded like airport security getting involved again. Then Dad was back on the line. Eva, you've made your point. Come back and we'll discuss this like adults. We're done discussing. You made your choice, I've made mine. You're really going to throw away your family over money? The irony of that statement from the man who'd literally just sold me out for a free vacation was not lost on me. I'm not throwing anyone away. You did that when you decided I was worth less than a free trip, when you enabled Mark's lies, when you stole from my emergency card, when you chose Jessica over your own daughter. She's going to be family. And what am I, chopped liver? You're independent. You don't need us. There it was. The truth finally. Because I'd been responsible, because I'd worked hard, because I'd succeeded, I'd somehow forfeited my right to be treated with basic respect and honesty. You're right, I said. I don't need you, and now you'll see what life is like when I stop giving. I hung up and immediately blocked all their numbers. The relief was immediate, followed by a wave of grief. Not for them, but for the family I'd thought I had. The family I'd been funding and supporting while they plotted behind my back. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The hotel confirmation of cancellation. Full refund to be processed within 5 to 7 business days. The travel insurance claim was already approved. $26,000 that would return to my account instead of funding their betrayal. As I finally drove out of the parking garage, I caught a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror. They were at the curb, arguing with airport police, their luggage scattered around them. Jessica was having what appeared to be a complete meltdown, mascara running down her cheeks. Mark was on his phone, probably trying to salvage something. Mom was sitting on a suitcase, head in her hands. And Dad was gesticulating wildly at an officer who looked supremely uninterested in his plight. I'd done that. I'd reduced them to chaos with a few phone calls. The power was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. But as I merged onto the highway heading home to my empty apartment, I realized something important. For the first time in my life, I'd chosen myself, and it felt like flying. My phone, now blessedly silent thanks to the blocked numbers, sat peacefully in the cup holder. But I knew this wasn't over. People like my family didn't give up easily when their free ride was threatened. They'd find ways around the blocks, flying monkeys, to send in their stead guilt trips delivered by proxy. But for now, in this moment, I was free. Free from their expectations, their manipulations, their endless taking. The road stretched ahead, full of possibilities that didn't include funding anyone else's dreams at the expense of my own. I'd deal with the fallout tomorrow. Tonight I was going to order expensive takeout, open a bottle of wine, and look up solo vacation destinations. Somewhere beautiful, somewhere peaceful, somewhere my family would never think to look for me. Because if they'd taught me anything today, it was that the best family you could have was the one you chose for yourself. And I was choosing freedom. By the time I reached home, the adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a crushing loneliness that made my chest tight. I sat in my car in the apartment building's garage engine off, trying to process what had just happened. In less than 2 hours, I'd gone from excited traveler to family exile. My hands shook as I reached for my phone muscle memory, directing my fingers to Sarah's contact. My best friend since college, the one person who'd always been there through every family drama, every work crisis, every broken heart. Sarah would understand. Sarah would rage with me, comfort me, maybe even help me plot some petty revenge that would make us both laugh. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, Sarah answered, but there was something off about her voice, a hesitancy that set off alarm bells in my head. "Eva, is everything okay? Aren't you supposed to be on a plane right now?" "Sarah, you won't believe what just happened. My family, they gave my spot to Jessica. The whole trip I paid for, they just—" "Oh my God," Sarah interrupted, but her shock sounded forced theatrical. Wow, I'm so sorry, Eva. Can I come over? I really need to talk to someone and I can't face my empty apartment right now." The pause that followed was too long. Way too long for a best friend being asked for comfort. "Actually, I'm not home right now," Sarah said carefully. "I'm out of town for the weekend." "Out of town? You didn't mention going anywhere. Where are you?" Another pause. I heard muffled voices in the background like she was covering the phone. Then a man's laugh. A familiar laugh that made my blood turn to ice. "Sarah," I said slowly, "who's with you?" "Ava. I've been meaning to talk to you about this. It's just, the timing was never right, and then you were so focused on the family trip." "Who's with you?" I repeated, though I already knew. That laugh had been branded into my memory through 2 years of dating and 6 months of heartbreak. "It's Brandon," she admitted quietly. "We're in Austin for the weekend. We've been seeing each other." The hits just kept coming. Brandon, who dumped me 6 months ago because I was too focused on family obligations and never prioritized the relationship. Brandon, who I'd cried over for weeks while Sarah brought me ice cream and called him every name in the book. Sarah, who'd held me while I sobbed, who'd promised that any man who couldn't see my worth wasn't worth having. How long? My voice sounded dead, even to my own ears. 3 months, Sarah whispered. "It just happened. We ran into each other at a bar, started talking about you actually, and then 3 months. I did the math. So when I was crying on your couch about seeing him with someone new at the farmer's market, you were the someone new. You don't understand. We didn't plan this. And I was going to tell you, but you were always talking about Brandon and I didn't know how to... I was talking to my best friend about my ex-boyfriend. I didn't realize I was giving you dating tips. Ava, please. You have to understand. You two weren't right for each other. But Brandon and I, we just click. He gets me in a way that he never got me." I finished. "Let me guess. I was too intense, too focused on work, too devoted to my ungrateful family. But you're fun, spontaneous, know how to live in the moment. Sarah's silence confirmed everything. They'd bonded over dissecting my flaws, found common ground in listing all the ways I'd failed as a girlfriend, as a friend, as a person worthy of loyalty. I can't believe you two deserve each other. I said, a bitter laugh escaping. He cheats with his ex's best friend, and you betray someone who trusted you completely. It's perfect, really. We didn't cheat, you two were broken up. No, Sarah, you cheated on our friendship, on every promise you made to always have my back, on basic human decency. I heard Brandon's voice clearly now. Is that Ava? Tell her I hope there are no hard feelings. We're all adults here. Hard feelings, I said loudly enough for him to hear. Why would I have hard feelings? My family just stole $26,000 from me, and my best friend has been screwing my ex while pretending to comfort me about him. This is just a banner day for Eva Thompson. Wait, what happened with your family? Sarah asked, and for a moment she sounded like the friend I'd thought she was, concerned, ready to help. But the moment passed, because she was in Austin with Brandon, probably in some romantic hotel room, living a life built on lies and betrayal, while I sat alone in a parking garage, abandoned by everyone I'd trusted. You know what? It doesn't matter, I said. Nothing matters. Enjoy Austin. Enjoy Brandon. Enjoy the clear conscience I'm sure you've convinced yourself you deserve. Eva, don't be like this. We can still be friends. This doesn't have to change anything. It changes everything, I said quietly. But don't worry, I won't make a scene. I won't blast you on social media or tell everyone what you did. I'm just going to do what apparently everyone wants me to do: disappear. I hung up before she could respond and blocked her number too. 2 decades of friendship reduced to a blocked contact. Just like family could become strangers in an airport, best friends could become betrayers in a hotel room 200 miles away. The universe wasn't done with me yet, though. As I finally dragged myself out of the car and up to my apartment, I found my door slightly open. Not broken, just open, like someone had left in a hurry and hadn't pulled it closed properly. My heart hammered as I pushed the door wider. I should have called the police, but honestly, what else could go wrong today? If someone was robbing me, they'd be disappointed. All my valuables were in my personality, and apparently that wasn't worth much. The apartment was a mess, but not from robbery. My parents. They'd used their spare key, the one I'd given them years ago for emergencies, to come in and take my luggage. My beautiful match set of hard-shell suitcases I'd bought specifically for the Dubai trip was gone. In their place was chaos. Drawers pulled out, closet ransacked, even my bathroom toiletries scattered. They'd taken more than luggage. My travel pillow, the universal adapter, set my portable phone charger, even the travel-sized bottles I'd carefully filled with my expensive shampoo. Everything I'd packed for the trip they'd stolen from me, they'd now stolen again. On my kitchen counter was a note in Mom's handwriting. Borrowed these for the trip. You said you weren't going anyway. Love, Mom. Love. The word mocked me from the paper. Love was respecting boundaries. Love was honesty. Love was not breaking into your daughter's home to steal her belongings after you'd already stolen her vacation. I walked through my apartment cataloging the missing items. They'd been thorough. My passport was gone from my desk drawer, though what they planned to do with it I couldn't imagine. My travel journal, where I'd been documenting plans and dreams for the trip, vanished. Even the guidebooks I'd bought, annotated with sticky notes and highlighted sections, had disappeared. But they'd made one mistake. In their haste to grab physical items, they'd left my laptop open on the dining table, still logged into my email, where all my travel confirmations lived, where my banking apps were saved, where every piece of evidence of their financial manipulation was stored. I sank into a chair staring at the screen. There in my recent emails was one I hadn't sent, a draft created from my account addressed to my boss. Dear Mr. Peterson, I regret to inform you that due to family obligations, I need to tender my resignation effective immediately. They'd tried to quit my job for me, the job that made me independent, the job that gave me the financial freedom they resented, the job that meant I didn't need them. I deleted the draft, my hands shaking with rage. How far were they willing to go? What line wouldn't they cross in their quest to... What punish me for standing up for myself? Force me back into the role of family ATM. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Miss Thompson, this is building security. We have a note here that you've approved your parents to access your apartment for an emergency. I approve no such thing, I said firmly. They had an old emergency key they've now abused. Please add them to the Do Not Admit list immediately. Robert and Linda Thompson are no longer authorized to enter this building. Of course, Miss Thompson. We'll update our records, and we'll review the security footage from today for you. Security footage. Evidence of their breaking and entering. One more piece of ammunition I never thought I'd need against my own parents. After hanging up, I sat in my violated apartment surrounded by the empty spaces where my belongings should be. No family, no best friend, no support system. Just me and the wreckage of relationships I'd spent years building and funding. I could have cried, should have cried, but I was empty. Stripped clean like my apartment, nothing left to give or take. They'd wanted me to disappear. Fine, I'd disappear, but on my terms, not theirs. First things first, change the locks. Then passwords on everything. Then figure out how to rebuild a life when everyone you trusted has shown you exactly how little you meant to them. The Dubai sun would rise tomorrow without me there to see it, but the sun would rise here too on a life I was about to reconstruct from scratch. No family obligations, no best friend dramatics, no expectations except my own. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was mine. I spent the next hour in a frenzy of activity. Locksmith called and scheduled for the morning. Every password changed. Credit cards locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Building security briefed with photos of my family members who were now persona non grata. It was mechanical, methodical work that kept my hands busy while my mind reeled. That's when I started the real cleanup. Gathering the scattered papers, reorganizing drawers, trying to restore some order to my ransacked home. I was on my knees picking up documents from under my bed when I found them. Financial statements that weren't mine, scattered among my things like they'd fallen from someone's pocket or bag in their hurry. At first I almost threw them away. Then I saw my name, my social security number, my investment account details. But these weren't my statements. These were transaction records I'd never seen before. I spread them across my bedroom floor, my heart rate accelerating as I began to piece together what I was looking at. Withdrawal authorizations from my Charles Schwab investment account. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger major alerts. 200 here, 300 there. But they added up. Over 24 months, someone had been slowly draining my investment account. The signatures on the authorization forms were mine, except they weren't. Close enough to pass casual inspection, but I knew my own handwriting. The lowercase a was wrong. The way the E in Eva connected to the V was off. Someone had been practicing my signature, getting good enough to fool a bank teller who didn't look too closely. I grabbed my laptop, logging into my investment account with shaking fingers. I'd been so focused on my checking and savings tracking every penny for the Dubai trip that I'd neglected to monitor the account where I kept my long-term investments. My forget about it for 30 years fund, as Dad had called it, when he'd helped me set it up after my college graduation. The current balance made me gasp. It should have been close to $40,000. It was barely $25,000. $15,000. Gone. Stolen in increments small enough to avoid detection but large enough to fund what? I pulled up the transaction history cross-referencing with the papers on my floor. The withdrawals started 2 years ago, right around the time Mark had supposedly lost his job. They increased in frequency 6 months ago when Jessica came into the picture. The most recent one was last week while I was working overtime to cover the final payments for Dubai. The phone records were even more damning. Call logs showing repeated contacts between my parents' landline and my investment company. Calls made during business hours when they knew I'd be at work. Calls lasting long enough to complete transactions. I found a notepad in Mom's handwriting with my security questions listed. Mother's maiden name. first pet, elementary school. All the answers she'd know because she'd lived them with me. All the information needed to convince a customer service representative that she was authorized to access my accounts. My laptop dinged with a new email, a draft not sent sitting in my folder from 3 days ago, from Mom's email to Jessica. Don't worry about the wedding costs, sweetheart. We have access to family resources that Eva doesn't need to know about right now. Consider it our wedding gift to you and Mark. After all, Eva would want to contribute to her brother's happiness even if she doesn't know it yet. Family resources, my resources, my money earned through 60-hour weeks and sacrificed weekends, my future security treated like a communal piggy bank. But the violations went deeper. In my filing cabinet, I found tax documents I didn't remember filing, claims for deductions I hadn't made, home office expenses for a house I didn't own, charitable donations to organizations I'd never heard of, all filed using my information, all directing refunds to an account that wasn't mine. Someone had been using my identity for tax fraud, and given the papers were in my apartment mixed with my parents' things, it wasn't hard to figure out who. I called Diane, my cousin the lawyer, the only family member who'd ever stood up to my parents. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm until she heard the ice in mine. Eva, I thought you'd be halfway to Dubai by now. Change of plans. Diane, I need to ask you something as my lawyer, not my cousin. What's the statute of limitations on identity theft and financial fraud in Texas? The pause was heavy. What did they do? I loved that she didn't ask who. She knew. She'd always known what my parents were capable of, had warned me years ago to protect myself. I hadn't listened, too blinded by family loyalty to see the wolves in sheep's clothing. They've been accessing my investment accounts for 2 years, possibly filing fraudulent tax returns. I have evidence, but it's all family. It's all criminal, Diane finished. Eva family doesn't make fraud legal. It makes it worse. It's a breach of trust on top of a crime. I told her everything. The Dubai theft, the apartment break-in, the financial documents. With each revelation, her breathing got heavier, her lawyer persona taking over from concerned cousin. You need to file a police report, she said when I finished. Today, document everything. Photograph every paper, every statement, every unauthorized transaction. This isn't just about money anymore. This is about a pattern of criminal behavior. They're my parents, I said weakly, not sure why I was defending them. They're criminals who happen to be your parents, Diane corrected. Eva, $15,000 from investments, $26,000 from the trip. Who knows how much in tax fraud? We could be looking at federal charges here. Federal charges. My parents in handcuffs. Mark's mugshot in the paper. The family destroyed not by my actions, but by their own crimes. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, it felt like another loss. There's something else, I said, remembering the hotel's strict policies. The Burj Al Arab requires the original credit card for check-in. I still have it. They can't access the room without it. Diane laughed, a sharp sound that held no humor. Oh, this is beautiful. They're going to fly 14 hours to Dubai and get turned away at the hotel. Do you know how strict luxury hotels are about fraud prevention? So they'll be stranded. Stranded with no accommodation in one of the most expensive cities in the world, unless they can find last-minute lodging, which during peak season will cost a fortune, if they even have working credit cards after you report the fraud. The poetic justice of it was almost too perfect. They'd stolen my trip but couldn't steal my credit card. They'd taken my luggage but not the one thing that would make it useful. They'd played checkers while karma was playing chess. Eva, I need you to listen carefully, Diane said, her voice turning serious. This is going to get ugly. When they realize they can't access the hotel when the fraud reports hit, when they understand the legal rampage they're facing, they'll come for you. Not physically, but they'll try everything else. Emotional manipulation, flying monkeys, public shaming, whatever it takes to make you back down. What do? You document everything. You file the reports. You press charges if necessary, and you don't under any circumstances let them back into your life without legal oversight. They've shown you who they are. believe them. After we hung up, I sat surrounded by evidence of my family's betrayal, each paper a small cut together, forming a pattern of deliberate, systematic abuse. They hadn't just taken money, they'd taken my trust, my identity, my sense of security. I photographed everything, uploaded it to multiple cloud services, emailed copies to Diane. Then I drove to the police station with a box full of evidence and a heart full of resolution. The officer who took my report was kind but thorough, his expression growing more grave with each document. "This is extensive," he said finally. "We'll need to involve Financial Crimes Unit, possibly the FBI if the tax fraud is confirmed. Are you prepared for that?" Was I prepared to be the daughter who sent her parents to federal prison? The sister who destroyed her brother's life? The family member who chose justice over blood? "Yes," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "I'm prepared." As I left the station, my phone buzzed with an international number, probably them calling from the airport. I didn't answer. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them land in Dubai and discover that their crime spree had a price. Because I was done being their victim, done being their bank, done being their anything. The war had begun, and they'd fired the first shot. But I had ammunition they'd never seen, coming evidence they'd carelessly left behind in their arrogance. They thought I'd fold, forgive, forget, like I always had. They thought wrong. Back in my apartment, I sat at my dining table with a legal pad and a calculator, transforming my grief into strategy. If my family wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what a financial analyst could do when properly motivated. Every transaction they'd made, every lie they'd told, every crime they'd committed was about to become evidence in my arsenal. My phone vibrated with yet another call from an international number. They were probably boarding now, full of false confidence that I'd cave like I always did. Let them fly 14 hours with that delusion. The landing would be all the sweeter. I called the Burj Al Arab, directly explaining the situation to their fraud prevention department. The representative's tone shifted from polite to protective when I mentioned unauthorized travelers attempting to use my booking. "Ms. Thompson, I can confirm our policy is absolutely strict. No original card, no check-in. We've had too many fraud attempts to make exceptions. I'll make a note in your file that you're the only authorized person for this booking. What happens when they arrive and can't check in? Hotel security will escort them from the premises. If they become disruptive, local authorities will be called. Dubai takes fraud very seriously." Perfect. My family was about to learn that their actions had consequences in a country where financial crimes weren't brushed aside as family matters. But I wasn't done. I pulled up Mark's company website, Remote Solutions, Inc., a tech firm specializing in secure data management. Ironic, considering Mark had been violating their security protocols for months. Their employee handbook was public and Section 12.3 was crystal clear, falsifying location data, while accessing company systems was grounds for immediate termination and potential legal action. I composed an email to Diane with all of Mark's bank statements, showing work deposits while he was clearly traveling, cross-referenced with Jessica's social media posts, tagged in various locations. Beaches in Florida, casinos in Vegas, ski resorts in Colorado, all while Mark's time log showed him working from home in Dallas. Then I remembered Grace, my college roommate who'd crashed on my couch for 6 months after her divorce, who'd cried on my shoulder through custody battles and financial ruin. Grace, who now worked as head of HR at Remote Solutions, Inc., Grace, who'd told me at our last lunch that they'd been having issues with employees abusing remote work privileges. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to her contact. It was past business hours, but Grace had always been a workaholic. She answered on the first ring. "Eva, how's Dubai? I saw your mom's Facebook posts about the big family trip." "Actually, Grace, I'm still in Dallas. There's something you need to know about one of your employees." The silence stretched as I explained everything. Mark's lies, the hidden employment, the location fraud. I could hear Grace typing, probably pulling up Mark's employee records. "Eva. I'm looking at his logs right now. He's been coding from 6 different states in the last 3 months while reporting a home address. Do you have any proof of his actual locations during these times? I have Jessica's social media posts putting them in every single one of those places on those exact dates. Photos, hotel check-ins, the works. Grace's voice turned professional, the friend replaced by the HR director. I need you to send me everything. This isn't just a violation of company policy. He's been accessing sensitive client data from unsecured locations. This is a massive security breach. Our clients include government contractors. My stomach dropped. I'd thought this was just about time theft, but Mark had potentially exposed classified information because he wanted to vacation while pretending to work. The FBI involvement Diane had mentioned suddenly seemed inevitable. Grace, how bad is this? If he accessed certain client files from public Wi-Fi in hotels or casinos, we're looking at federal charges. Corporate espionage at worst, criminal negligence at best. Every client contract includes security clearance requirements that he's violated. I forwarded her everything while we were still on the phone. Jessica's Instagram, Mark's bank statements, even the scattered papers from the airport showing his work materials in tourist locations. Ava, I'm calling our legal team now. We'll need to lock Mark out of all systems immediately and start a forensic audit of what he accessed and from where. I'm so sorry this is your brother, but you've potentially saved our company from a massive lawsuit. After we hung up, I checked the time. My family would be somewhere over the Atlantic now, probably in first class, thanks to my stolen credit card toasting their clever manipulation. Mark might even be using the in-flight Wi-Fi to log into work, adding another violation to his growing list. But I wasn't done. Jessica's social media had given me an idea. If she was so concerned about her online image, maybe it was time to do some digging into her digital footprint. People who construct false narratives usually leave traces of their real story. It took less than an hour to find the cracks in Jessica's facade. A reverse image search of her profile pictures led to a defunct lifestyle blog from Arizona. The blog painted a very different picture from the sophisticated woman my brother thought he was marrying. Posts about maxed credit cards, failed MLM schemes, and most interestingly, a husband named David and 2 young children she'd apparently abandoned. The blog stopped abruptly 3 years ago, right around when Jessica Martinez became Jessica Martin and moved to Texas. A name change just slight enough to pass casual inspection, but different enough to throw off anyone searching for her past. I found David Martinez on LinkedIn, mechanical engineer, single father, living in Phoenix. His profile was professional, but his few public posts told a story of struggle and resilience. One post from last year caught my eye. 3 years since she left. The kids still ask why mommy doesn't call. I still don't have an answer. My finger hovered over the message button. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about 2 children who deserved to know what happened to their mother, about a man who deserved answers, about my brother who deserved to know he was planning to marry a woman who'd already destroyed one family. I typed carefully, professionally, introduced myself, explained the situation, attached a few recent photos of Jessica from social media, asked if this was the same person, offered to talk by phone if he preferred. His response came within minutes. That's her. That's Jessica. Please call me. My kids deserve closure. The conversation that followed broke my heart. David's voice was steady but strained as he detailed how Jessica had drained their accounts, maxed out credit cards in both their names, then disappeared while he was at work, leaving their children with a neighbor. She'd taken everything valuable and left behind $40,000 in debt and 2 confused toddlers. I've been looking for her for 3 years, he said. Not to reconcile, but to finalize our divorce and get child support. She owes our children that much. She's been living in Dallas under the name Jessica Martin. My brother thinks she's never been married. They're planning a wedding. David's bitter laugh echoed through the phone. A wedding? She can't legally marry anyone. We're still married. I couldn't file for divorce without her signature or proving abandonment, which requires knowing where she is. I gave him all the information I had. Jessica's new name, her social media profiles, even the flight information for their Dubai trip. David promised to have his lawyer ready with papers the moment they returned. "Your brother's lucky to find out now," David said before we hung up. "Even if it hurts, Jessica is like a tornado. She destroys everything in her path and moves on without looking back." My laptop dinged with a new email from Grace. Mark's remote access had been terminated. The forensic audit was beginning. The legal team was involved. And based on preliminary findings, Mark had accessed high-security client files from a Vegas casino's public Wi-Fi last month. The FBI would be notified by morning. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my balcony looking out at the Dallas skyline. Somewhere over the ocean, my family was flying toward their doom, blissfully unaware that their house of cards was collapsing. The hotel would reject them. Mark would find his career destroyed. Jessica would face her abandoned past. My parents would discover their financial crimes had been reported. And me, I was here orchestrating their downfall with the same attention to detail I'd used to plan their dream vacation. They'd created this situation. I was just ensuring they faced the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Police report filed. Financial Crimes Unit very interested. Subpoenas being prepared. Are you ready for this?" Was I ready? I thought about the $15,000 they'd stolen from my future, the $26,000 they'd taken from my present, the trust they'd shattered, the home they'd invaded, the identity they'd abused. "I'm ready," I texted back. "Let them burn." Sleep eluded me that night. I lay in bed, calculating time zones, imagining my family somewhere over the Atlantic, probably sleeping off their first-class champagne. Mark might be dreaming of his romantic proposal while Jessica practiced her surprised face. They had no idea their world was already crumbling back home. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Grace. "Ava, I'm sorry to call so late, but this is worse than we thought. Our forensic team has been working all night. Mark didn't just access client data from unsecured locations. He downloaded it. We found copies on his company laptop that he synced to personal cloud storage." Oh, God. I sat up, fully awake now. "What kind of data?" "Government contractor algorithms, proprietary code for defense systems, trade secrets worth millions. Eva, this isn't just corporate theft anymore. This is potential treason." The word hit me like ice water. Treason. My idiot brother had gone from lying about working to potentially selling national secrets, probably without even realizing it, all because he wanted to vacation while pretending to work from home. What happens now? FBI is taking over. They'll be waiting when your family lands back in Dallas. Mark's passport has been flagged. He won't be leaving Dubai until federal agents clear him or arrest him. Grace, I had no idea it would escalate this far. You did the right thing. If foreign actors had accessed that cloud storage, Eva, you might have prevented a national security disaster. The FBI will want to talk to you, but you're a hero in this, not a suspect. A hero. I didn't feel like one. I felt like a sister who'd just destroyed her brother's life, even if he'd brought it on himself. After Grace hung up, I made coffee and opened my laptop. If I was going to be awake, I might as well be productive. I started organizing all the financial fraud evidence into neat folders, creating a timeline that showed the pattern of theft. 2 years of systematic abuse laid out in spreadsheets and PDFs. At 6 a.m., another call, Diane this time. "Ava, I just got off the phone with the financial crimes detective. They're taking this very seriously. The investment fraud combined with the tax issues makes this a federal case. They want to freeze your parents' assets while they investigate. All of them. Every account they can find. The house, the cars, the bank accounts. It's standard procedure in fraud cases to prevent them from hiding assets. The house. My childhood home where I'd taken my first steps, blown out birthday candles, opened Christmas presents. Now it would have federal seizure notices on the door. Part of me ached at the thought. Most of me felt grimly satisfied. "There's more," Diane continued. "The detective ran a wider search based on the patterns you uncovered. Your parents have been running this scam on other relatives too. Your Aunt Patricia. They've been accessing her accounts. Your grandmother's estate that was supposed to be divided equally, they've been skimming from it." The scope of betrayal kept expanding. This wasn't just about me. I was simply their most recent and lucrative target. How many family members had noticed small discrepancies and dismissed them? How many had trusted my parents' explanations for missing money? "We need to contact everyone," I said. Aunt Patricia, the other cousins, anyone who might have been victimized. Already on it. I've been calling family members all morning. The stories are pouring in. Missing inheritance checks, accessed accounts, forged signatures. Your parents have been running a crime family, not a family. By 8 a.m., my phone was chaos. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were calling with their own stories. Aunt Patricia sobbing about her missing retirement funds. Uncle Jerome furious about bonds that had been cashed out without his knowledge. The family group chat, usually full of recipe shares and birthday wishes, had become a crime victim support group. Then came the call I'd been expecting, an international number I recognized as the Dubai country code. But it wasn't my parents or Mark, it was Aunt Charlotte. "Eva, darling, I'm at the Burj Al Arab. You should see the scene here. It's absolutely delicious." I put her on speaker, grabbing my coffee. "Tell me everything." "Well, your family arrived about 20 minutes ago. 5-star luggage designer clothes, looking like they own the world. The check-in agent was very polite when asking for the credit card. Your father tried to bluff, saying you were parking the car. Then your mother tried to slip the agent cash, actual cash, like this was some seedy motel." I could picture it perfectly. Dad's blustering authority crumbling against corporate policy. Mom's desperation hidden behind her fake smile. Security got involved when Mark started yelling about discrimination. That girlfriend of his had a complete meltdown screaming about her Instagram followers expecting content. The word lawsuit was thrown around until the manager explained that threatening legal action was grounds for immediate removal. "Are they still there?" "Oh no, they've been escorted out. They're in the lobby trying to book rooms on their phones. But it's Formula One week, darling. Everything's booked solid or priced for oil princes. I heard your mother gasp at a quote of $8,000 per night at the only available hotel." Formula One week. I'd known that when booking had paid premium prices to secure our dream hotel during the busiest time. Now that same timing would price them out of anything decent. They'd probably end up in some airport hotel an hour from the city if they were lucky. "Charlotte, I need to tell you something about Mark. The FBI is involved. He might not be able to leave Dubai." "The FBI? Oh, Eva, what has that boy done now?" I explained about the data breach, the national security implications. Charlotte's silence spoke volumes. "I'll keep an eye on them," she said finally. "I have contacts at the airport. If he tries to leave, I'll know. But Eva, are you all right? This is your family we're talking about." They stopped being my family when they chose crime over love, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. After Charlotte hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment watching the sunrise paint Dallas in shades of gold and pink. My family was homeless in Dubai, soon to be pursued by federal agents. My brother's career was over his freedom in jeopardy. Jessica would face her abandoned children. My parents would lose everything they'd stolen and more. And I felt free. For the first time in my life, truly free. No more guilt-driven transfers to cover their expenses. No more lies to untangle. No more wondering if they loved me or just what I could provide. My phone buzzed with a notification from my bank. The Dubai trip refund had processed. $26,000 back in my account. I stared at the number, then opened a new browser tab. If my family wanted to steal my Dubai vacation, fine. I'd book myself something better. Bali, Maldives, Santorini. The world was full of places where no one would expect me to fund their dreams or sacrifice my own. Places where I could sit on a beach and let the waves wash away the debris of broken trust. I clicked on a luxury resort in the Maldives, overwater bungalow, private butler, spa treatments, solo traveler package that cost half what I'd spent on my ungrateful family. The booking confirmation felt like a declaration of independence. My phone rang again. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer, then recognized the voice. Brandon. My ex, calling from what was probably Sarah's phone since I'd blocked his. Eva, I heard what happened with your family. Sarah's worried about you. Sarah's worried. I laughed. The woman who's been sleeping with my ex for 3 months while pretending to be my best friend is worried about me. Look, I know you're upset, but taking down your whole family, that's extreme even for you. Even for me, like I was the unreasonable one, like I'd asked to be robbed, betrayed, abandoned. Brandon, why are you really calling? Sarah thinks you might do something crazy, like report her to her job or something vindictive. There it was. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about themselves. Sarah must have realized that if I'd report my own parents for fraud, I might report her ethical violations as a therapist who'd used our friendship to gain information about a patient's ex. Tell Sarah, I said calmly, that unlike everyone else in my life, I actually have integrity. I won't stoop to petty revenge against her. She has to live with being the kind of person who betrays her best friend. That's punishment enough. So you're not going to... I hung up, blocked the number, added it to the growing list of people I was better off without. My block list was becoming longer than my contact list, but quality over quantity had never been more true. By noon, Aunt Charlotte reported that my family had found lodging at a budget hotel near the airport. Mark had been detained for questioning by Dubai authorities after his company contacted Interpol about the data breach. My parents were frantically trying to access money to help him, but their accounts were already frozen. Jessica had apparently abandoned them all last seen, trying to charm her way into a wealthy tourist's yacht party. The rat fleeing the sinking ship true to form. I booked my Maldives flight for tomorrow, first class because I deserved it. Window seat champagne on boarding the works. Let my family figure out their own way home from their nightmare vacation while I started my dream one. The universe has a sense of humor. They'd stolen my Dubai trip but ended up with nothing but disaster. I'd lost my family but gained my freedom. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planning someone's downfall. It's letting them plan their own while you plan your rise. I was packing for my Maldives escape when my laptop chimed with a Facebook notification. David Martinez had sent me a message. My hand hesitated over the mouse, knowing this would open another chapter in the saga of Jessica's deceptions. Eva, I can't thank you enough. My lawyer is preparing everything. But I found something you need to see. Jessica's been running this same con in multiple states. I hired a private investigator. Attached were documents that made my blood run cold. Jessica Martinez, Jessica Martin, Jessica Mills. She'd used variations of her name across Arizona, Nevada, and Texas. Each time the pattern was the same charm: a lonely man with money, drain his accounts, disappear before the wedding. Mark wasn't her second victim. He was her fifth. The investigator had found 4 other men, all telling similar stories. Combined, Jessica had stolen over $200,000 in 3 years. She was a professional con artist, and my brother was just her latest mark. The FBI might be interested in this, David added. Interstate fraud, identity theft, bigamy, since we're still married. She's looking at serious federal time. I forwarded everything to Diane and Grace, adding another layer to the criminal enterprise my family had stumbled into. How fitting that their greed had led them straight into the arms of a bigger predator. My phone rang. Aunt Charlotte again, and she sounded breathless with excitement. Ava, you're not going to believe this. Your mother just accidentally went live on Facebook again. She doesn't know how to turn it off. The whole world is watching your family implode in real time. I rushed to Facebook, finding my mother's page. Sure enough, there she was sitting in what looked like a dingy hotel room, sobbing while trying to figure out her phone. The comments were already pouring in. Linda, what's happening? Where's the luxury hotel? Is that a hostel? What happened to the Burj Al Arab? Where's Eva? Why isn't she with you? My mother's tear-streaked face filled the screen as she ranted, apparently thinking she was leaving a private video message for someone. This is all Ava's fault. She canceled everything out of spite. My own daughter left us stranded in this horrible place. Mark's been arrested, and that witch, Jessica, disappeared with his credit cards. The comments exploded. Their church friends, co-workers, extended family. Everyone was watching this breakdown live. Someone must have told her because she suddenly looked directly at the camera, her eyes widening in horror. How do I turn this off? Robert, help me. My father appeared in frame looking haggard and 10 years older. What are you doing, Linda? It's recording, everyone can see us. The argument that followed was spectacular. They blamed each other, blamed me, blamed Mark for getting arrested, blamed Jessica for existing. 37 minutes of unfiltered family drama broadcast to everyone they knew. By the time Dad finally figured out how to end the stream, the damage was done. Screen recordings were already being shared in group chats with popcorn emojis. My cousin Michael texted me, "Did you see your mom's live? Aunt Linda just destroyed their reputation in under an hour." Pastor Williams is calling an emergency meeting about their leadership positions. Their carefully crafted image of the perfect Christian family shattered by their own technological incompetence. I couldn't have planned it better if I'd tried. But the universe wasn't done with its poetic justice. An email from Grace marked urgent made me sit down hard on my bed. Eva Mark's situation just got worse. The FBI found evidence he was trying to sell the downloaded data. He posted on dark web forums looking for buyers. He thought he was being clever using cryptocurrency, but they traced it back to him. This is full-on espionage charges now. My brother, who couldn't hold down a regular job, thought he could become an international spy. The stupidity was staggering. He'd probably watched too many movies thinking he could make quick money selling secrets without understanding he was committing treason. How long could he get? 25 to life if convicted. Eva, I'm so sorry. 25 to life. My little brother, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd helped with homework, who I'd covered for when he broke Mom's favorite vase. Now he might spend the rest of his life in federal prison because greed had overridden sense. My phone buzzed. Unknown international number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Ava. It was Jessica, and she sounded panicked. You have to help me. Your brother got arrested and left me here with no money. Jessica, or should I say Jessica Martinez, how's your husband David? How are your kids? The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. How did you find out? The same way the FBI did, the same way your other victims did. You're not as clever as you think, Jessica. David's lawyer will be waiting when you land in Dallas. If you land in Dallas. Pretty sure fleeing the country while under federal investigation isn't recommended. This is all your fault, she screeched. If you'd just given up your seat like a normal person, none of this would have happened. No, Jessica. If you hadn't been a con artist, if my brother hadn't committed treason, if my parents hadn't been thieves, none of this would have happened. You all made choices. Now you face consequences. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone what kind of person you really are. A person who exposed criminals? Go ahead. My conscience is clear. She hung up, but not before I heard her crying. Real tears this time, not the fake ones she'd perfected for her cons. The sound of someone realizing their game was finally over. Diane called next. Eva, the asset freeze went through. Your parents' house, cars, bank accounts. Everything's locked down pending investigation. They won't be able to access any money until this is resolved. They're stuck in Dubai with no money. Unless they have cash hidden somewhere, yes. The State Department will eventually help them get home, but it won't be pleasant. Basic economy seats on the cheapest flight available, probably with multiple connections. I thought about their first-class tickets bought with my stolen card, now useless. They'd spend 20-plus hours in middle seats eating peanuts if they were lucky, wearing the same clothes they'd been in for days. After expecting luxury, they'd get exactly what they deserved. Nothing. My laptop dinged with another message from David, a photo of him at the airport with official-looking documents. On my way to Dubai with divorce papers and custody agreements. My lawyer says with the evidence you provided, I can file for emergency custody and back child support. My kids are going to get justice. Those poor children. 3 years without their mother, and now they'd learned she was a criminal who'd chosen money over them. At least they had a father who'd fought for them, unlike Jessica, who'd abandoned them without a backward glance. I returned to my packing folding sundresses and swimsuits for a vacation that would actually happen. Each item I placed in my suitcase felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The designer luggage my parents had stolen didn't matter. I had something better: freedom from their toxic influence. My phone lit up with notifications from the family group chat I'd been removed from, but could still see screenshots of through cousins. The family was in chaos. Some sided with my parents, calling me vindictive. Others shared their own stories of theft and manipulation. The family reunion scheduled for Christmas was canceled, probably forever. Good. Why pretend we were a happy family when half of us were victims and the other half were criminals or enablers? As I zipped up my suitcase, I felt lighter than air. Tomorrow I'd board a plane to paradise paid for with my own money on my own terms. No guilt, no obligations, no family drama. Just me, the ocean, and the beginning of a life lived for myself. The family I'd been born into was finished, but the family I'd choose, friends who actually cared, cousins like Diane, who had integrity, future relationships built on trust instead of transactions, that family was just beginning. And it started with choosing myself. I woke at 4 a.m. too excited about my Maldives flight to sleep any longer. While making coffee, my phone rang. Aunt Charlotte, and despite the early hour in Dallas, it was afternoon in Dubai. Ava, darling, I'm at the Burj Al Arab having tea, and you'll never guess who just caused another scene in the lobby. I put her on speaker, settling in for what promised to be entertaining. Tell me everything. Your father tried to sneak back in, claiming he had a business meeting with a guest. Security recognized him from yesterday and called the police. He's been formally banned from all Jumeirah properties. Your mother filmed the whole thing, probably accidentally live again. Of course she did. Mom's technological incompetence had become our family's unofficial documentarian, broadcasting their downfall to everyone they knew. But that's not the best part. Charlotte continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I just heard from my contact at the airport. Mark's been moved to a detention facility. The American embassy is involved, but with the espionage charges, he's looking at extradition back to the States in custody. My little brother in handcuffs being perp-walked onto a plane, the golden child who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, now an international criminal. The irony was sharp enough to cut. What about Jessica? Oh, that one's even better. She tried to leave the country on a flight to Mexico, but her passport was flagged. Turns out David Martinez filed an international child abandonment warrant. She's being held for extradition to Arizona. Jessica's house of cards hadn't just fallen, it had been hit by a hurricane. 3 years of running from her responsibilities, and she'd run straight into a trap of her own making. Charlotte, how are you getting all this information? She laughed, a rich sound that reminded me why she was my favorite aunt. Darling, I've lived in Dubai for 15 years. I know everyone. Plus, your family isn't exactly being subtle. Your mother's Facebook Live videos have made them infamous. The concierge at their airport hotel asked me if I was related to the crying American lady. My phone beeped with another call. Grace. I told Charlotte I'd call her back and switched over. Eva, I'm sorry to bother you so early, but this is important. The FBI wants to interview you today. They've been investigating Mark's dark web activities and found something disturbing. My stomach dropped. What now? He wasn't working alone. The forum posts show he was coordinating with someone else, someone who knew about the government contracts. They think it might be someone from inside our company, or possibly someone in your family who had knowledge of his work. You think my parents were involved? That's what the FBI wants to determine. Can you come to our offices at 9? They'll be setting up in our conference room. I agreed, my Maldives dreams suddenly feeling less certain. If my parents were involved in Mark's espionage, this went beyond financial fraud. This was conspiracy federal charges that carried decades in prison. After showering and dressing professionally, I drove to Remote Solutions, Inc. The parking lot was fuller than usual for a Saturday black SUVs with government plates clustered near the entrance. Inside, Grace met me with a grim expression and two FBI agents in dark suits. Agent Sarah Chen and Agent Michael Torres introduced themselves with firm handshakes and serious expressions. We settled in the conference room where Grace had prepared boxes of documents. Miss Thompson, Agent Chen began, "We appreciate your cooperation. Your initial report to Miss Patterson prevented what could have been a catastrophic security breach. However, we've uncovered evidence suggesting this was a larger conspiracy." She slid a printed screenshot across the table, a dark web forum post from Mark's account. Family member with financial background can help verify authenticity of data. Split profits 60-40. "We need to know," Agent Torres said carefully, "if you had any knowledge of your brother's activities." "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "I reported him the moment I discovered his employment fraud. I had no idea about any of this until Grace called." They questioned me for 2 hours, going over every family dinner, every conversation about work, every interaction with Mark and my parents. By the end, I was exhausted but cleared of suspicion. The family member with financial background wasn't me. "Your father," Agent Chen said finally. "He was a bank manager before retiring, correct?" The pieces clicked into place. Dad's sudden interest in Mark's remote work, his questions about cybersecurity at family dinners, the way he'd defended Mark's lies about unemployment. He'd known, more than known, he'd been helping. "We have evidence of communications between your father and these forums," Agent Torres confirmed. He was helping validate which data would be most valuable to foreign buyers. His banking background gave him knowledge of what financial institutions would pay for certain algorithms. My father, the man who'd lectured me about family values while planning to sell national secrets, who'd stolen my vacation while committing treason, who'd chosen greed over country, over family, over basic human decency. What happens now? My voice sounded hollow even to myself. "We're coordinating with Dubai authorities for his arrest. Your mother is being investigated as a possible accomplice. The house assets, everything will be seized under federal forfeiture laws." I signed statements, provided more evidence, and walked out of that building feeling like I'd aged 10 years. But in the parking lot, something strange happened. I started laughing. Quietly at first, then louder, until I was leaning against my car in near hysteria. They'd wanted my Dubai trip so badly they'd stolen it. Now they were experiencing a very different kind of Dubai, one with detention centers and extradition treaties. They'd wanted luxury and got law enforcement. They'd wanted paradise and got prison. My phone rang. Diane. "Ava, I just got word. Your parents were arrested an hour ago, both of them. The charges include conspiracy to commit espionage, financial fraud, identity theft, and about 12 other federal violations. They're being held pending extradition." All of them, the whole family. Every last one. Mark your parents and Jessica. They'll all be on federal transports back to the States within the week, in custody. The news is already breaking. CNN just picked up the story. I pulled up news sites on my phone. There it was. Dallas family arrested in international espionage ring. Mark's company photo, my parents' Facebook profiles, Jessica's mugshot from an old Arizona arrest I hadn't known about. Our family Christmas card from last year looking like a crime syndicate announcement. The texts started immediately. Extended family co-workers, college friends, everyone who'd seen the news. Some offering support, others seeking gossip, all shocked that the Thompson family had harbored such darkness. But I was done with all of it. I drove home past the house where I'd grown up, now wrapped in federal seizure tape, past the church where my parents had pretended to be pillars of the community, past the restaurant where we'd had Sunday dinners built on lies and theft. In my apartment, I finished packing for the Maldives. The FBI had cleared me to travel, even apologized for the inconvenience. I added a few books to my suitcase stories about people who'd rebuilt their lives from ashes. Seemed appropriate. My family had wanted to go to Dubai together. In a way they had, just not the trip any of us had imagined. They'd gone as criminals and would return as prisoners. The Golden City had become their golden cage. As for me, I had a plane to catch, a luxury resort waiting, a life to rebuild without the weight of toxic relationships. The family I'd lost had never really been mine anyway. They'd been a crime syndicate masquerading as relatives, and I'd been nothing but their mark. But marks can wise up. Victims can become victors, and sometimes the best family is the one you leave behind. I had just finished checking in for my Maldives flight when my phone buzzed with a text from cousin Michael. OMG Eva, your mom is live on Facebook again, this time from the detention center. You have to see this. Against my better judgment, I opened Facebook. There was my mother, her usually perfect hair in disarray, her makeup streaked with tears, holding her phone at an unflattering angle that showed fluorescent lights and concrete walls behind her. The viewer count was already at 3,000 and climbing. "This is Linda Thompson, and I need everyone to know the truth," she wailed into the camera. "We're being held like criminals in this awful place. They won't even let us have our toiletries. My daughter Eva did this to us. She destroyed our family over money." The comment section was brutal. "Linda, didn't you steal from her? Is it true your husband was selling government secrets? Where's that luxury hotel you were bragging about? Team Eva, honestly?" Mom continued her rant, seemingly unaware of the mounting criticism. "We raised that ungrateful girl. We gave her everything, and this is how she repays us by having us arrested, by ruining our vacation." Then my father appeared in frame, trying to grab the phone. "Linda, stop it. You're making things worse." "How could it be worse? Robert, our son, is facing life in prison. That Jezebel Jessica stole his money and disappeared. And you told me the forum thing was just research." My jaw dropped. She was admitting to the conspiracy on a public live stream. Their lawyer, wherever they were, must have been having a heart attack. This was evidence pure and simple being broadcast to thousands of witnesses. "It was research." Dad protested, his face purple with rage. "How was I supposed to know Mark would actually try to sell it?" "Because you helped him price it," Mom shrieked. "You said your banking experience would make us rich. You said Ava would never find out." The viewer count hit 10,000. Screen recordings were being made. News outlets were probably drafting stories. My parents were literally confessing to federal crimes on social media while in custody. You couldn't make this up. Then came the sound of footsteps and official voices. "Ma'am, you're not authorized to have that phone. Hand it over immediately." "This is America." Mom screamed, though they were very much in Dubai. "I have rights. I want to speak to the manager. I mean the ambassador. The feed cut off abruptly, but the damage was done. Screenshots were already going viral. Thompson Family Crimes was trending. Someone had made a TikTok set to circus music featuring highlights from all of Mom's accidental live streams. My phone immediately exploded with calls and texts. I put it on airplane mode and headed to my gate, grateful for the escape. Let them deal with their viral infamy while I dealt with tropical drinks and ocean views. But even at 30,000 feet, I couldn't fully escape. The businessman next to me was reading a news article on his tablet, "Dallas Family's Dubai Disaster, How a Stolen Vacation Led to Federal Espionage Charges." There was our family photo right below the headline. He glanced at me, did a double take, then carefully angled his tablet away. I pulled out my eye mask and pretended to sleep. 15 hours to the Maldives. 15 hours to pretend none of this was happening. When I landed and turned my phone back on, I had over 200 notifications. The most urgent was from Diane. "Eva, call me now. Your mom's live stream is being used as evidence. Also, Jessica tried to escape custody and failed spectacularly." I called her while waiting for my seaplane transfer. "Eva, where are you?" The Maldives. As far from this mess as possible. What happened with Jessica? She seduced a guard, convinced him to leave her cell unlocked, then tried to steal his uniform. Except she's 5'2" and he was 6'4". She made it about 10 feet before the pants fell down and she tripped. It's on the detention center's security footage. Someone leaked it, and it's gone viral too. Of course it had. My family's criminal enterprise had become a comedy special. Jessica, the master manipulator who'd conned 5 men brought down by ill-fitting pants. It was almost poetic. "There's more," Diane continued. "The FBI traced the money. Your parents weren't just stealing from family. They were taking investments from church members for a fake charity. They promised to build wells in Africa, but used the money for vacations and Mark's wedding fund." "How much?" "Over $300,000. Eva, they're looking at RICO charges now. This is organized crime-level fraud." RICO. The law used to take down mob families. How fitting for my family of criminals. They'd started with small thefts and graduated to federal offenses, dragging everyone into their web of lies. "What about the other victims?" "Lining up to testify. Your Aunt Patricia wants to press full charges. The church is conducting its own investigation. 3 elderly members gave their life savings to the fake charity. One couple had to delay retirement because of it. My parents had stolen from the elderly, from people who trusted them, from their own congregation. Whatever sympathy I might have had evaporated entirely. They weren't misguided or desperate. They were predators." The seaplane pilot called for boarding. As I walked across the dock, I made a decision. I switched my phone to a new number I'd prepared, one that only Diane and a few trusted people would have. The old number, the one connected to my former life, I left active, but ignored. Let it fill with messages I'd never read, calls I'd never answer. 2 hours later, I stood on the deck of my overwater bungalow watching the sunset paint the Indian Ocean in shades of gold and crimson. The resort had no TVs in the rooms, no news channels, no connection to the outside world, unless you sought it out. Perfect. That evening at dinner, I met another solo traveler, James, a forensic accountant from Seattle. We bonded over expensive wine and stories of our work, carefully avoiding personal details. He mentioned working on a high-profile case involving family fraud, and I nearly choked on my lobster. Small world, I managed. Family fraud seems common these days. "You'd be surprised how often it happens," he said, his kind eyes studying me with professional interest. "The betrayal is usually worse than the financial loss. Money can be replaced, trust can't." Speaking from experience, my brother emptied my parents' retirement accounts for a pyramid scheme. I'm the one who caught him and turned him in. Haven't spoken to that side of the family in 3 years. We talked until the restaurant closed, finding unexpected comfort in shared experiences of family betrayal. He didn't recognize me from the news, or if he did, he was too polite to mention it. We made plans to go snorkeling the next day, and for the first time in weeks, I looked forward to something. That night, I sat on my deck watching stars reflect on the water. Somewhere my family was in custody, their crimes exposed to the world. The life we'd shared was over dead and buried under federal indictments and viral videos. But here in this paradise they'd tried to steal from me, I was beginning something new. A life where trust was earned, not assumed. Where family was chosen, not inflicted. Where my success was mine to enjoy, not theirs to steal. The waves whispered against the pillars of my bungalow, a gentle rhythm that slowly replaced the chaos in my mind. Tomorrow would bring sun and sea and the company of someone who understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for toxic family is let them face justice. For tonight, though, I had peace. Real, profound peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've done the right thing even when the right thing means watching your family destroy themselves on social media while the whole world watches. The Thompson family empire had fallen. But Eva Thompson. She was just getting started. My 3rd day in paradise was interrupted by a call from an unknown Maldivian number. Assuming it was the resort, I answered only to hear a voice that made my blood run cold. "Eva dear, it's Grandmother Martha." I nearly dropped the phone. Grandmother Martha, the family matriarch who'd been in a nursing home for the past 5 years. The one who needed constant care, whose medical bills my parents managed, whose estate they controlled due to her declining mental capacity. Grandmother. How are you calling from a Maldivian number? Her laugh was rich and sharp, not at all the feeble sound I remembered. Oh, I'm not in the Maldives, dear. I'm using what you young people call a VPN. I thought it might get you to answer since you've blocked everyone else. Clever of you, by the way. I don't understand. The nursing home is lovely, yes. I chose it myself. Private suite, excellent care, gourmet chef. Nothing like the rundown facility your parents told everyone I was in. My mind raced. But Mom said you needed constant care, that you couldn't manage your affairs. What I needed, Martha said crisply, was to see who in this family had actual character versus who just wanted my money. So I played along, pretended to be confused when your parents visited, let them think I was entirely dependent, and watched. Oh, Ava, did I watch. I sank onto my bungalow's daybed trying to process this. You've been pretending this whole time. 5 years of Academy Award-worthy performances. Do you know what I've observed your parents stealing from everyone, including me? Mark turning into a criminal. That Jessica creature measuring my jewelry when she thought I was napping. And you. Me. The only one who visited without asking for money, who brought me photos from your trips instead of bills to pay, who talked to me like a person instead of a wallet. You even read to me, remember, Pride and Prejudice, all 6 hours of it because you thought I'd enjoy it. Tears pricked my eyes. Those Sunday visits I'd squeezed in between work, feeling guilty I couldn't do more. I thought you were asleep for most of it. I was listening to every word, just like I listened when your parents discussed their plans in my room, thinking I was too far gone to understand. Did you know they were planning to have me declared legally incompetent? They'd already falsified documents claiming power of attorney. Grandmother, I'm so sorry. I should have known, should have protected you. Stop that right now, she commanded, sounding like the force of nature who'd built a successful textile business from nothing. You couldn't have known what I didn't want you to know. Besides, you did protect me. By exposing their crimes, you saved me from their final scheme. What final scheme? They were going to sell my house, the one I've been too sick to visit but actually maintain through a property management company. Market value of $8 million. They had fake documents ready, claiming I'd gifted it to them before my mental decline. $8 million. The scope of their greed took my breath away. But the house is in a trust. Exactly. A trust they didn't know about because I created it before my Oscar-worthy performance began, along with several other trusts, investments, and accounts they never found. Your parents thought they were managing my entire estate. They were managing approximately 5% of it. I laughed despite myself. You've been playing 4-dimensional chess while they were playing checkers. Precisely, which brings me to why I'm calling. I've been watching the news. Quite the spectacular downfall. Your mother's live streams particularly. Did you know she's become a meme? Someone set her rants to techno music. I've been trying not to look. Well, I have been looking, and I've made some decisions. First, I'm cutting your parents and Mark out of my will entirely. Can't inherit from federal prison anyway. Second, I'm establishing a foundation for victims of family financial fraud with you as the director. Third, I'm transferring the house deed to you immediately. Grandmother, I can't. You can and you will. Consider it payment for all those Sunday visits and Jane Austen readings. Besides, someone needs to live in it. 8 bedrooms is excessive for one person, but you might find it useful. You want to give me an $8 million house because I read you Pride and Prejudice. I want to give my granddaughter who has integrity something the vultures can't steal. The transfer is already in progress. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. I was crying now, overwhelmed by the reversal of fortune. Grandmother, why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have stopped them years ago. And miss this magnificent show, Eva Dear Revenge is a dish best served cold with a side of federal prosecution. Your parents needed enough rope to hang themselves properly. A little theft here and there wouldn't have done it, but treason, stealing from churches, fraudulent charities. Now that's a proper criminal empire worth exposing. You knew it would escalate. Greed always escalates. Give a mouse a cookie and it'll steal your entire pantry. Your parents started with skimming my grocery money and ended up selling state secrets. Rather predictable, really. A thought struck me. Did you know about Mark's job, the espionage? I suspected. He visited me once, very nervous, asking theoretical questions about international banking, specifically how one might move large sums from foreign sources without detection. I told him it was impossible in today's digital age. He seemed disappointed. And you didn't warn anyone. Would you have believed me? The confused old lady in the nursing home? Besides, warning criminals tends to make them craftier. Better to let them hang themselves with their own stupidity. She had a point. If someone had told me 6 months ago that my family was capable of this level of crime, I'd have defended them. It took seeing it myself to believe it. Now, Martha continued briskly, I need you to do something for me. There's a safe deposit box at First National number 447. Your name was added last week. Inside are documents you'll find interesting, including recordings. Recordings? Did you think I was knitting during all those visits I was recording? Every conversation, every confession, every criminal plan discussed in my presence. 5 years of evidence, all perfectly legal, since they were in my private room. You're terrifying, I said with genuine admiration. I'm a 91-year-old woman who built $1 million business when women weren't allowed to have credit cards. Of course I'm terrifying. Now enjoy your vacation. You've earned it. When you get back, we'll have lunch at the house, your house, and plan the foundation. We're going to help a lot of people who've been betrayed by family. Grandmother, how did you know I was in the Maldives? I have my sources. Also, you posted a sunset photo on Instagram yesterday. Lovely composition, by the way. That young man in the background looked nice. I blushed, remembering James photobombing my sunset shot during our beach walk. You're on Instagram. Under a pseudonym, naturally. Can't have the criminals knowing I'm competent. Though I suppose that cat's out of the bag now. Oh, before I forget, don't be surprised if you hear from 60 Minutes. They've been very persistent about interviewing me. You didn't. Next Sunday's episode, The Grandmother Who Grifted the Grifters. Rather catchy title, don't you think I wore my best pearls? After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. My grandmother, the frail old lady I'd been mourning, was actually a mastermind who'd orchestrated a 5-year sting operation against her own family. She'd gathered evidence, protected her assets, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a selfie of Grandmother Martha in a gorgeous library raising a champagne glass. She looked elegant, sharp, and absolutely delighted. The caption read, "To the only Thompson with honor, the rest can rot." I saved the photo and poured myself champagne from the minibar. Toasting the sunset, I laughed until tears streamed down my face. My family had thought they were master criminals, but they'd been outplayed by a nonagenarian who'd probably forgotten more about strategy than they'd ever known. That evening, James and I had dinner on the beach. I told him about my grandmother's call, and he nearly choked on his wine when I got to the 60 Minutes part. "Your grandmother sounds like someone I'd love to meet," he said, eyes twinkling with admiration. "She'd probably try to recruit you for her foundation. She mentioned something about needing forensic accountants." "I might be interested," he said, then paused. "Ava, I have a confession. I know who you are. Your case is all over the financial crime forums. You're kind of a hero in our community. The whistleblower who took down her own family to stop a massive fraud ring." I waited for the familiar shame, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt something like pride. "And you still wanted to have dinner with me?" "Especially because of that. Do you know how rare integrity is in today's world? You gave up everything to do the right thing. That's extraordinary." We talked until the stars came out, sharing stories of our work, our lives, our hopes for the future. He was smart, funny and understood the complex emotions of family betrayal. When he walked me back to my bungalow, the kiss goodnight felt like a promise of new beginnings. Inside, I video called Diane to share the news about grandmother Martha. She laughed so hard she cried. "I always wondered about her," Diane admitted. "She hired me, 5 years ago. Said she needed a lawyer who understood family dynamics. Now it all makes sense." "You knew." "I suspected, but attorney-client privilege. I couldn't say anything. But Ava, this is perfect. With her recordings and evidence, your parents don't stand a chance. They're going away for a long, long time." As I prepared for bed, I thought about the strange turns life takes. A week ago, I'd been devastated by my family's betrayal. Now I was in paradise with a potential romance, blooming an $8 million house, waiting for me, and a grandmother who'd turned out to be a secret superhero. My phone showed dozens of missed calls from my old number. Probably reporters, distant relatives, or rubberneckers wanting gossip. I ignored them all. That life was over. Tomorrow, James and I planned to go sailing. Next week, I'd return to Dallas to claim my inheritance and start a foundation. But tonight, I stood on my deck watching bioluminescence sparkle in the dark water and felt grateful for the unexpected ways justice arrives. Sometimes it comes through courts and handcuffs, sometimes through viral videos and public humiliation, and sometimes it comes through a grandmother who spent 5 years pretending to be senile just to catch her greedy children in the act. The Thompson family had played themselves, and grandmother Martha had been keeping score all along. My 2 weeks in the Maldives ended too soon, though the romance with James had blossomed into something promising. We'd exchanged numbers, made plans to meet in Dallas, and shared a goodbye kiss that left me floating through 3 airports. But reality crashed back the moment I turned on my phone at DFW. 57 news alerts. My family's case had exploded into national news after grandmother Martha's 60 Minutes interview. I pulled up the video while waiting for my luggage earbuds in to avoid recognition. There was Martha resplendent in Chanel sitting in what I now knew was her actual home's library. Anderson Cooper looked genuinely fascinated as she detailed her 5-year deception. "So, you allowed your family to believe you were senile?" he asked. "I didn't allow anything," Martha corrected with a sly smile. "I performed. Every shuffle, every confused look, every forgotten name was calculated. I should have won an Emmy. And your granddaughter Ava had no idea. None. Though she was the only one who treated me with genuine kindness regardless. The others only showed affection when they wanted something." The interview cut to security footage from the nursing home, my parents rifling through Martha's drawers while she slept in her chair. Then came audio recordings of them discussing their plans to steal her house, their voices clear and damning. "Mrs. Thompson." Anderson said carefully, "Some would say entrapping your own family is cruel." Martha's eyes turned steely. "Cruel is stealing from your children. Cruel is selling national secrets. Cruel is defrauding churches and charities. I didn't entrap anyone. I simply gave them rope and watched them weave their own nooses." The segment ended with footage of my parents' arrest in Dubai, including Mom's now infamous live stream confession. The contrast between their orange jumpsuits and Martha's elegant composure was striking. At baggage claim, I kept my head down, but I still heard whispers. "Isn't that the Thompson girl? The one whose grandmother played them? Can you imagine finding out like that?" Diane met me at arrivals, her expression mixing sympathy with excitement. "Welcome home, homeowner. Ready to see your new house." The drive to Preston Hollow felt surreal. This was Dallas's old money neighborhood where oil executives and tech billionaires live behind iron gates. Martha's house, my house, sat on 3 acres, a Mediterranean-style villa that looked like it belonged in a magazine. "The property management company has maintained everything perfectly," Diane explained as we pulled through the gates. "Your grandmother's instructions were very specific. She even had your bedroom decorated 2 years ago." "My bedroom?" "3rd floor overlooking the pool. She said you'd mentioned loving rooms with good natural light for reading." Inside the house was even more magnificent. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, art that belonged in museums. But it was the details that made me cry. Fresh flowers in every room, my favorite coffee already stocked in the kitchen, and in the library, a first edition of Pride and Prejudice with a note, "For my darling Eva, who read to me when she thought I couldn't hear. All my love, grandmother." We were exploring the wine cellar when Diane's phone rang. Her expression darkened as she listened. "What is it?" I asked when she hung up. "Your parents' transport landed an hour ago. They're in federal custody at Segoville. Mark's at a separate facility for high-security inmates. They're all requesting to see you." "No. I told the prosecutor you'd say that. But Ava, there's something else. During the arrest in Dubai, they found something in your mother's luggage, documents she'd stolen from your apartment, including your birth certificate, social security card, and passport." "The passport they took during the break-in?" "Yes, but that's not the strange part. The documents were in a folder labeled insurance. There were also DNA test results from 5 years ago." My blood ran cold. "What kind of DNA tests?" Diane hesitated. "Paternity tests. Eva, did you know Robert Thompson isn't your biological father?" The room spun. I grabbed the wine rack for support. "What?" "According to these documents, your biological father is someone named William Chen. Your mother apparently had an affair early in their marriage. Your parents have known for 5 years. William Chen." The name meant nothing to me, but suddenly so much made sense. The way Dad had always been colder to me than to Mark. The jokes about me not looking like either parent. The resentment that went deeper than money. They knew I wasn't his and never told me. "It appears they've been using it as justification for their treatment of you. There are notes in your mother's handwriting about you owing them for raising another man's child." I sank onto a wine crate, processing this final betrayal. They'd stolen from me, not just because they were greedy, but because they'd never considered me real family. I was an obligation, a reminder of Mom's infidelity, a bill they felt entitled to collect. "Do you want me to track down William Chen?" Diane asked gently. "Not yet, maybe not ever. I need to process this first." We returned upstairs where Grandmother Martha waited in the living room, having let herself in with her key. She looked at my face and immediately knew. "They told you about the DNA tests," she said. It wasn't a question. "You knew." "I've known since you were born. You have William's eyes. He was a sweet boy, an exchange student from Berkeley. Your mother was young and foolish. Your father was working long hours and well. Why didn't you tell me?" Martha took my hands in hers, her grip surprisingly strong. "Because it didn't matter. You were my granddaughter regardless of DNA. But I documented everything knowing Linda would eventually use it against you. I was right. Dad's not my dad." The words felt hollow. "Robert Thompson was never your father in any way that mattered," Martha said firmly. "He was a sperm donor to Mark and nothing more. A father loves, protects, provides. He did none of those things for either of you." My phone buzzed. Aunt Charlotte texting from Dubai. "Saw the news about the DNA. You're still my favorite niece. Biology doesn't change that." Then Cousin Michael, "Just heard. You're still family to those of us who matter." And one by one, the relatives who'd sided with me reached out. Not about money or scandal, but just to say I was loved, regardless of whose DNA I carried. The family I'd thought I'd lost was rebuilding itself around me stronger for having shed its toxic members. That evening, I sat in my new library surrounded by Martha's books and the lingering scent of her perfume. The DNA revelation should have destroyed me, but instead it freed me. I wasn't Robert Thompson's daughter. I'd never been part of their criminal family tree. I was just Eva, and that was enough. James called to check on me, having seen the news. "So you inherited an $8 million house and discovered you're not related to the criminals. Sounds like a win-win to me." "My life is insane," I told him. "Insanely interesting," he corrected. "When do I get to see this house and meet the legendary Martha?" "How about this weekend fair warning? She'll probably try to recruit you for the foundation. I'm already interested. Did you know financial fraud by family members affects 1 in 5 Americans? Your foundation could help millions. As we talked about the foundation's potential, I felt the last pieces of my new life clicking into place. The family I'd been born into was gone, but the family I was choosing, Martha Diane, Charlotte James, and others who'd proven their loyalty, was so much better. Later that night, I found myself in the kitchen at 3 a.m. stress baking, like I hadn't done in years. Martha appeared in the doorway, silk pajamas and perfect posture despite the hour. "Couldn't sleep either," she asked. "Too much to process." "The DNA thing?" "Everything. This house, the foundation, James, finding out my entire life was built on lies." Martha poured herself wine from the bottle I'd opened. "Not your entire life. You built your career on hard work, your friendships on loyalty, your integrity on choices you made despite your upbringing, not because of it. The lies were theirs, not yours. Do you think I should contact William Chen?" "That's your choice. But Eva, you already have a father figure who actually deserves the title." "Who?" "Anderson Cooper seemed quite taken with you during our interview. Said anyone who'd sacrifice that much to do the right thing must have been raised by someone with principles. I told him you raised yourself. He seemed impressed." I laughed, flour dusting my hands as I shaped cookies. "You're trying to set me up with Anderson Cooper." "He's taken, dear," I checked. "But the principle stands. You don't need Robert Thompson or William Chen or anyone else to validate your worth. You've already proven it." We baked until sunrise, filling the kitchen with the scent of chocolate chip cookies and new beginnings. As the first light touched the pool, I knew I was home. Not just in this house, but in my own skin, my own story, my own truth. My phone sat silent on the counter. Somewhere my parents and Mark waited in federal custody, probably still blaming me for their downfall. But their opinions no longer mattered. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. The war was over. I'd won by walking away. 3 days into settling into my new home, I was reviewing foundation paperwork when my doorbell rang. The security monitor showed a woman I didn't recognize, mid-40s, professionally dressed, looking nervous. "Yes," I said through the intercom. "Miss Thompson, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Preston Wedding Venues. There's been a significant issue with a booking under your name." My blood ran cold. I hadn't booked any wedding venue. "I'll be right out." I met her at the gate, maintaining the barrier between us. She handed me a folder through the bars, her expression apologetic but firm. 6 months ago, a deposit was placed for our grand ballroom for next June. $30,000 paid with a credit card in your name. The booking was made by Linda and Robert Thompson, listing you as the financial guarantor. I flipped through the contract, recognizing my forged signature immediately. The booking was for 400 guests with gold-level catering premium bar service and a live orchestra. My parents had been planning Mark's wedding using my credit while plotting to steal my Dubai trip. "This is fraud," I said flatly. "That's not my signature. I never authorized this." Jennifer nodded knowingly. "We suspected as much when we saw the news. However, the legal complexities require us to formally verify with you before we can process the fraudulent booking claim. The good news is, since it's fraud, you'll receive a full refund once our investigation is complete." How did they even get a credit card in my name? The application was submitted online with all your personal information. The card was sent to your parents' address. This is more common than you'd think in family fraud cases. Another violation. Another theft. But this time, I felt only tired amusement. Of course, they'd been planning a lavish wedding on my dime. It fit their pattern perfectly. "What happens to the venue booking?" I asked. "It's canceled immediately. We've blacklisted all parties involved. And Miss Thompson, we've had 3 other venues call us about similar situations. Your family apparently booked multiple locations to have options." Multiple venues. The greed was pathological. They'd been spending money I hadn't even known they'd stolen, planning a future built entirely on crime. After Jennifer left with my fraud affidavit, I called the credit monitoring service Diane had set up. Sure enough, there were 6 credit cards I'd never opened, all maxed out. Total debt in my name over $100,000. The good news, the representative said, is that with the police reports and federal case clearing, these will be straightforward. The bad news is this suggests ongoing identity theft over several years. I spent the rest of the day on the phone with credit card companies, wedding vendors, and luxury car dealerships, where apparently my parents had test-driven vehicles using my financial information. Each call revealed another layer of theft, another violation of trust. That evening, Diane arrived with boxes of additional evidence from the prosecutor. "You need to see this," she said, pulling out a file. "Your parents' house was searched today. They found a storage unit key which led to this." She spread photos across my dining table. The storage unit was filled with luxury goods, designer bags, watches, electronics, even art, all with receipts in my name from the fraudulent cards. "They were stockpiling," Diane explained, "planning to sell these items for cash after the wedding. We found a ledger where they tracked everything. They called it Operation Eva's Obligation." Operation Eva's Obligation. They'd turned stealing from me into a military campaign with a code name. The premeditation was staggering. "There's more," Diane continued. "Jessica's husband, David, arrived from Arizona. He's been working with prosecutors. Jessica's real name isn't even Jessica. It's Jennifer Walsh, no relation to the venue lady. She has warrants in 4 states under different names." "Let me guess," I said. "All for the same con, find lonely men, drain accounts, disappear." "Exactly. But here's the interesting part. She kept souvenirs, photos with each mark, including your brother. The FBI found them in her hotel room." She showed me the photos. Jennifer with 5 different men wearing the same practice smile, the same calculating eyes. Mark was the latest, his arms around her at what looked like the Vegas casino, where he'd compromised national security. "She was already planning her exit," Diane noted. "Found apartment listings in Portland under another new name. Your brother was probably 2 months away from waking up broke and alone." My phone rang, Grandmother Martha. "Ava dear, turn on Channel 8. Your mother's lawyer is having a press conference." I switched on the TV to find a sweating man in an ill-fitting suit standing outside the federal courthouse. "My clients are victims of a vindictive daughter who couldn't stand her family's happiness," he declared. "Eva Thompson orchestrated this entire situation out of jealousy over her brother's engagement. The reporters weren't buying it." "How do you explain the live-stream confessions?" one shouted. "Doctored videos," the lawyer claimed desperately. "Deep fakes created by Eva's tech connections." "What about the financial evidence?" "Planted. My clients are loving parents who've been betrayed by an ungrateful child." The conference devolved quickly as reporters hammered him with facts. He retreated to his car, chased by questions about how loving parents steal their daughter's identity. "That's the best lawyer they could afford with frozen assets," Martha said cheerfully through the phone. "Public defender rejected the case due to conflicts, so they got this ambulance chaser who usually handles traffic tickets. They're really claiming I faked everything. Desperation makes people stupid. Speaking of which, did you see Mark's interview from jail? Someone recorded it on a contraband phone." "I found the video online. Mark in orange jumpsuit ranting to fellow inmates about being set up by his jealous sister who couldn't stand that he'd found love. His audience looked unimpressed. One prisoner actually laughed when Mark claimed to be a political prisoner. The comments were brutal. Dude committed treason and blames his sister. This whole family is insane. Team Eva needs t-shirts." My new doorbell rang again. This time it was a FedEx delivery requiring signature. Inside were documents from William Chen. My hands trembled as I read his letter. "Dear Ava, I've followed your story in the news with great admiration. It takes tremendous courage to stand up for justice, especially against family. Your mother contacted me years ago demanding money to keep my identity secret. I refused having my own family to protect, but I've always wondered about you. I'm not writing to claim any role in your life. Robert Thompson failures aside was your father in practice. But if you ever want to know about your biological heritage or simply talk, I'm here. I'm proud that my DNA contributed to someone with such integrity. Enclosed is information about a trust I established for you when I learned of your existence. I never touched it, hoping someday you'd need or want it. It's yours regardless of whether we ever meet. William. The trust documents showed an account established 32 years ago with $1,000. Untouched with compound interest, it had grown to over $50,000. Not life-changing money, but the gesture meant everything. A stranger had thought of me, planned for me, while the people who raised me plotted against me. James arrived as I was processing everything, having flown in from Seattle as promised. He took one look at my overwhelmed expression and pulled me into a hug. Bad day. Confusing day. Found out my parents booked a 400-person wedding on credit cards they opened in my name. Also, my biological father, I've never met, saved money for me, while my fake father stole it. Your life needs its own Netflix series, he said, then looked around the mansion. This place is incredible. Martha has excellent taste. Want the tour? As I showed him through the house, sharing stories Martha had told about each room, I felt the day's stress lifting. With each revelation of my family's crimes, I felt lighter. Every exposed lie meant one less secret weighing me down. That night, we cooked dinner together in my massive kitchen, dancing to music and pretending the outside world didn't exist. He'd taken a week off to help me set up the foundation, and his forensic accounting expertise was already proving invaluable. You know what's ironic, he said over pasta. Your parents stole your identity to fund a life of luxury, but you inherited actual luxury by being the only honest one. Karma has a sense of humor, I agreed. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Prosecutor says trial date set for spring. They're looking at 25 to life for Mark, 15 to 20 for your parents, 10 to 15 for Jessica. All three are trying to flip on each other for reduced sentences. Of course they were. No honor among thieves, especially family thieves. They'd probably all end up testifying against each other, cementing their mutual destruction. You okay? James asked, seeing my expression. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. I'm actually good. They made their choices. I've made mine. And what choice is that? I looked around my inherited kitchen at this kind man who'd flown across the country to support me at the phone, full of messages from chosen family who actually cared. To live well, to help others, to build something good from all this wreckage. I'll drink to that, he said, raising his wine glass. As we toasted, I thought about the wedding my parents had booked with stolen money. 400 guests celebrating a union built on lies. Instead, I was here with one person who mattered in a home given by someone who truly loved me, planning a future based on truth. The reckoning had come for my family of criminals, but for me, this was just the beginning. Spring arrived with dogwood blossoms in my garden and subpoenas in my mailbox. The trial date was set for May, and the prosecutor warned me I'd be the star witness. My family had stopped trying to flip on each other when they realized I had documentation for everything. Their lawyers were now pushing for plea deals, but the federal prosecutor smelled blood in the water. I was in my home office reviewing foundation applications with James when my phone rang. The Dallas wedding venue from the fraudulent booking. Miss Thompson. This is Jennifer Walsh again. I'm calling with an unusual request. We've had a cancellation for this weekend, and given your situation, we'd like to offer you the space for free for any event you might want to host. That's very kind, but I'm not planning any events. Perhaps a launch party for your foundation. We've been following your story, and honestly, we'd be honored to host something positive after all the negativity. I looked at James, who'd overheard on speaker. He nodded enthusiastically. Actually, I said, that could work. The Thompson Family Fraud Recovery Foundation could use an official launch. Within 3 days, Martha and I had organized an elegant fundraiser. Diane handled the guest list. victims' rights advocates, financial crime attorneys, and most importantly, families who'd survived similar betrayals. The venue that was supposed to host my brother's fraudulent wedding would instead host hope for people my family had indirectly represented. The night of the gala, I stood in a gown Martha had insisted on buying me, watching hundreds of people fill the ballroom. Aunt Charlotte had flown in from Dubai. Cousin Michael brought his law firm colleagues. Even Grace from Mark's former company attended, having become an advocate for corporate security reform. "You clean up nice," James said, approaching with champagne. He looked distinguished in his tuxedo, and several of my cousins had already asked if he was single. "You too," I smiled. "Ready to give your presentation on financial recovery?" "Ready to follow the brilliant foundation director's opening speech," he countered. The evening was magical. Survivors shared their stories, finding comfort in community. We raised over $200,000 in donations. But the best moment came when Grandmother Martha took the stage. At 91, she commanded attention, like someone half her age. The room fell silent as she spoke. "They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that integrity is thicker than blood. My granddaughter Eva proved that when she chose justice over comfort, truth over family lies. This foundation isn't just about recovering money. It's about recovering faith in our own judgment, learning to trust again after the people who should protect us become predators." The applause was thunderous, but Martha wasn't finished. "I want to announce tonight that I'm donating $5 million to establish the foundation's permanent endowment. Additionally, I'm creating the Ava Thompson Scholarship for Ethics in Finance, because this world needs more people who can't be bought." I was crying as she left the stage, and I wasn't alone. The evening raised over $6 million total, enough to help hundreds of families recover from financial betrayal. As the gala wound down, Jennifer Walsh approached me. "Thank you for turning something painful into something beautiful. That's real courage." Outside the venue's marquee still showed Thompson Martin Wedding, crossed out with Thompson Foundation Gala, written above it. The symbolism was perfect, building something new from the ruins of lies. 2 weeks later, I sat in a federal courtroom as the lead witness against my family. They sat at separate defendant tables, no longer the united front they'd once pretended to be. Mom had lost weight, her designer clothes replaced by courtroom-appropriate attire that didn't quite fit. Dad looked older, grayer, smaller, without his bluster. Mark was barely recognizable prison, having stripped away his cocky demeanor. Jessica wasn't there. She'd pled guilty to everything in exchange for a reduced sentence and immediate deportation after serving time. Smart enough to know when the game was over. The prosecutor led me through the evidence methodically. Every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every violated trust. I spoke clearly, calmly, letting the facts tell the story. When the defense attorneys tried to paint me as vindictive, I simply pointed to the evidence. "Miss Thompson," Mom's lawyer asked desperately, "isn't it true you're enjoying living in your grandmother's mansion while your parents face homelessness?" "I'm living in a home my grandmother gifted me," I replied evenly. "My parents face homelessness because they stole from multiple family members and committed federal crimes. That's not vindication. That's consequence." Dad's lawyer tried a different approach. "You could have handled this privately within the family. Why involve law enforcement?" "Because private handling enabled them to victimize others. Aunt Patricia's retirement funds, church members' donations, my own identity used for fraud. When family becomes a criminal enterprise, privacy becomes complicity." Mark's attorney was the most aggressive. "You destroyed your brother's life over petty jealousy of his fiancée, didn't you?" "No. Mark destroyed his own life when he chose to commit espionage, steal government secrets, and attempt to sell classified information to foreign actors. I reported crimes, not relationships." The jury took less than 3 hours to convict on all counts. As the verdicts were read, guilty, guilty, guilty. Dozens of times over. I felt no joy, only relief. It was finished. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Mom got 12 years eligible for parole and 8 with good behavior. Dad received 15 years with no early release due to the espionage involvement. Mark got 30 years, the maximum for his crimes involving national security. As they were led away in shackles, Mom turned to me one last time. For a moment, I saw something like regret in her eyes. Then it hardened back into blame, and she looked away. They never spoke to me. No apology, no acknowledgement, nothing. They remained victims in their own minds until the end. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I'd prepared a statement. Today isn't a victory. It's a tragedy that could have been avoided if my family had chosen love over greed, honesty over deception. But from this tragedy, we're building something positive. The Thompson Foundation has already helped 50 families recover from similar betrayals. We're turning pain into purpose. James stood beside me, steady and supportive. Martha waited in the car, having watched the sentencing with grim satisfaction. Diane fielded legal questions while I focused on breathing. That night, we held a quiet dinner at home. My chosen family gathered around the dining room table where my biological family had never eaten. Charlotte told stories of Dubai, making us laugh about tourists' mishaps. Michael's wife announced her pregnancy, bringing tears of joy. Martha regaled everyone with tales of her business conquests in the 60s. To Ava, James proposed a toast as dessert was served, who showed us all that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choosing each other every day, especially when it's hard. To chosen family, I responded, raising my glass to the people who'd stood by me when standing was difficult. Later, as guests departed and James helped with dishes, I found myself in the library. The Pride and Prejudice first edition sat on its stand, bookmarked still at the chapter I'd been reading to Martha 5 years ago when she was pretending to be senile. "You did it," Martha said from the doorway. "You survived them." "We survived them," I corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Nonsense. You'd have found a way. That's who you are, someone who finds ways. Though I'm glad I could help provide some theater to the proceedings." "Your 60 Minutes interview is being taught in journalism schools now," I told her. Professor Anderson called it Master Class in Revelation Timing. She preened. "I do have a flair for drama. Must be where you get it." "I'm not dramatic." "Darling, you took down an entire crime family, inherited a mansion, started a foundation, and found love all in 6 months. You're a walking Netflix series." She wasn't wrong. My life had become extraordinary in ways I'd never imagined. But sitting in that library, surrounded by books and love and possibility, I realized something important. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It was better. "Grandmother, I said thank you for everything." "Thank yourself," she replied. "I just provided opportunity. You provided courage. And that, my dear, made all the difference." As she headed to bed, I remained in the library, James eventually joining me with tea. We sat in comfortable silence, planning the foundation's next phase, occasional laughter breaking the quiet. My phone, once a source of dread, now brought only good news. Updates from families we'd helped, invitations to speak at conferences, pictures from cousins who'd become closer through shared trauma and recovery. The family that had tried to destroy me was gone, locked away for decades. But the family I'd built from the ashes was thriving. And that more than any verdict or donation or inherited mansion was my true victory. 2 years had passed since that fateful day at the airport. The foundation had helped over 300 families recover from financial betrayal, with offices now in Dallas, Houston, and Austin. James and I had married in a simple ceremony in my grandmother's, now our garden, with only chosen family present. Martha, at 93, insisted on walking me down the aisle, declaring that someone had to do it properly. I stood in my office at the foundation, looking at the wall of thank you letters from families we'd helped. Each one represented a story like mine. Betrayal transformed into triumph, victims becoming victors. My assistant knocked, reminding me about the documentary crew arriving soon. Netflix had finally convinced me to participate in a series about family financial fraud, with our story as the centerpiece. Mrs. Chen Coleman. she said, using my married name that honored both my biological father and James. There's also a call from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Your mother is requesting to add you to her visitor list. I'd gotten these requests every few months. Mom, Dad, and Mark had all tried to initiate contact from prison. I declined every time, but something felt different today. Tell them I'll consider it, I heard myself say. That evening over dinner, I discussed it with James and Martha. We'd moved her into the main house full-time when she'd turned 92, claiming she needed to supervise our renovation of the East Wing into foundation offices. You don't owe them anything, James said carefully, but I support whatever you decide. Martha was more direct. Prison has a way of clarifying priorities. Either she's genuinely remorseful or she wants something. You'll know within 5 minutes which it is. 3 weeks later, I sat in a federal prison visiting room watching guards escort my mother in. She looked older, grayer, smaller. The orange jumpsuit hung on her frame. When she saw me, tears immediately filled her eyes. "Ava," she whispered, "you came." "I'm here to listen," I said evenly. "You have 15 minutes. She nodded, understanding the boundary. I've had 2 years to think, to really think about what we did, what I did, not just the crimes, but everything, the way we treated you, the lies we told ourselves to justify it. I waited, having learned the power of silence. I used to blame you for ruining our lives, she continued. It was easier than admitting we ruined our own. But there's a therapy program here, and I've been learning about narcissistic family systems, about scapegoats and golden children, about how we made you responsible for our happiness while giving you nothing but criticism. And I prompted when she paused, and I'm sorry. The words came out broken, but clear. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry I became someone who could steal from her own daughter. Sorry I chose greed over love. Sorry I made you feel like you weren't really family when you were the only one acting like family should. What about the DNA, I asked. The fact that Dad isn't my biological father. She flinched. My greatest shame. Not the affair. I was young and stupid. But using it against you, letting Robert treat you differently, making you pay for my mistake. You were innocent, and we punished you for existing. Did Dad know from the beginning? He suspected. The test confirmed it 5 years ago. Instead of seeing it as irrelevant to who you were, we used it as excuse for what we'd already been doing, taking from you. We sat in silence for a moment. I'd expected manipulation guilt trips, requests for money. This accountability was unexpected. I don't expect forgiveness, Mom said finally. I just needed you to know that I know. I see it now, all of it. The foundation work you're doing, I read about it in the prison library. You're helping people like us hurt. That's the daughter I should have treasured instead of exploited. What about Dad and Mark? Your father still blames everyone but himself. Mark, prison has broken him. He talks about the life he threw away but won't acknowledge why. They're stuck in their anger. I'm trying not to be. A guard signaled 5 minutes remaining. Mom leaned forward slightly, careful not to violate the no-contact rules. I have no right to ask, but would you tell me about your life? The real one, not what I read in magazines. So I did. I told her about the Foundation's work, about James and our plans to adopt, about Martha's continued vitality. I shared how Aunt Charlotte visited monthly from Dubai, how Jessica's ex-husband David had remarried, and his kids were thriving. I even told her about meeting William Chen, my biological father, and discovering I had half-siblings who welcomed me warmly. You built a beautiful life, she said as our time ended. The family you have now is what we should have been. Yes, I agreed simply. Could you come again sometime? I understand if not. I considered it. Maybe I'll think about it. As guards led her away, she turned back once. Ava, thank you for stopping us. We would have destroyed everything, including ourselves. You saved us from becoming worse monsters than we already were. I drove home in contemplative silence, processing the encounter. When I arrived, I found James in the garden, with Martha planning the foundation's annual gala. This year's theme was Phoenix Rising, about rebuilding from ashes. "How is it?" James asked, taking my hand. "Surprising. I think she might actually be growing." Martha snorted. "Prison does that. Nothing like forced introspection to develop character. Question is, will it stick?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But that's her journey, not mine." That night, the documentary crew interviewed me in the library. They asked about revenge and justice, about family and forgiveness. But their final question was the most important. "What would you tell someone currently trapped in a toxic family situation?" I looked directly at the camera, thinking of all the people who might need to hear this. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Know that family isn't a license to abuse. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for them and yourself, is refuse to enable their destructive behavior. And remember, you deserve a family that treats you with respect, honesty, and genuine love. If your birth family can't provide that, you have the right to build your own. "Any regrets?" the producer asked. "No," I said firmly. "I regret that it was necessary, but not that I did it. My family's crimes needed to stop. The foundation has helped hundreds of families. My story gave others courage to protect themselves. How can I regret that?" Later, as the crew packed up, the young sound technician approached me nervously. "Ms. Thompson, sorry, Ms. Chen Coleman, my sister is going through something similar with our parents. They've stolen her identity, ruined her credit. She's scared to report them." I handed him my foundation's card. "Tell her to call tomorrow. We'll help. That's what we do." His grateful smile reminded me why this work mattered. Every family we helped was a victory over the dysfunction that had nearly destroyed me. That night, our home filled with laughter as we hosted our monthly dinner for Foundation volunteers. Diane and her new husband arrived with wine. Charlotte FaceTimed from Dubai with pictures of her latest adventure. Even William Chen joined us, slowly building a relationship with the daughter he'd wondered about for 30 years. "A toast," Martha announced, raising her glass with slightly shaky but still determined hands. "To Ava, who turned betrayal into purpose. To James, who saw treasure where others saw scandal. And to chosen family, the only kind that truly matters." As everyone cheered and clinked glasses, I felt the profound gratitude that had replaced my old anger. My birth family had given me trauma, but I'd transformed it into triumph. They'd stolen money, but I'd gained purpose. They'd tried to destroy me, but instead, they'd freed me to become who I was meant to be. The doorbell rang and James went to answer it. He returned with a delivery, a small package addressed to me with no return label. Inside was a simple wooden box containing a silver compass and a note. "Forever. May you always find your true north. From someone you helped find theirs." No signature, but it didn't matter. Every week brought letters, gifts, messages from people whose lives we'd touched. Each one a reminder that good could come from evil, that purpose could rise from pain. As the evening wound down and guests departed, I stood in my garden looking at the stars. The same stars that had witnessed my humiliation at the airport now watched over my peace. "Any words of wisdom for our viewers?" James asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. The documentary crew was capturing one last shot. I thought about everything. The betrayal, the pain, the difficult choices, the unexpected joy. Then I smiled, knowing exactly what to say. Your family of origin is just your starting point, not your destination. You get to decide who deserves to be in your life. Choose people who choose you back. Build relationships on trust, not obligation. And remember, the best revenge against those who tried to diminish you is to live a life so beautiful they become irrelevant to it. The camera stopped rolling, but the truth of those words continued. Somewhere, my parents and Mark served their sentences, living with consequences they'd created. But here in this garden full of chosen family and second chances, I was living with choices I'd made. And those choices had led me home. Comment below. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? What would you do if you discovered your loved ones were living a double life? If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about triumph over adversity. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in dealing with difficult family situations. Thank you for joining Eva's journey. Remember, you are worthy of respect, love, and honesty. Never let anyone, not even family, convince you otherwise. Until next time, choose yourself. You deserve it.